Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world, and welcome back to another NMRAx. We've got, looks like we've got about 4 hours of entertainment here, so grab your popcorn and sit back. We've got a plethora of presenters coming up. So anyway, you don't want to listen to me rabbit on. Our next presenter here comes from the frozen tundras of Canada, near the nation's capital. He's been working on a little layout that's only 40 foot by 20 foot. It's just a moderate layout for the last 7 years, and spending too much time on buildings and scenery and not enough time actually running trains. So without any further ado, I'm going to hand it over to MHO Junction, or as I know him, Lloyd Henshey from Ottawa, Canada. Speak to you soon. Over to you, Lloyd.
Hello, Marty. Yeah, so for those who don't know me, yes, I'm Lloyd Henshey, also known as John Pacheco, MHO Junction on Facebook, on YouTube. And as Marty mentioned, I'm working on my layout, which is about 40 feet by 20 feet, L shape. And let me just share. Can you see that? Okay, so that's about my layout, and I calculated that I've got about. Oh, sorry. Okay. Oh, I forgot to click. Okay, is that better? Oh, okay. So yeah, like I was saying, my layout is about 40 by 20 L shape, and I calculated last month that I had about 30% done. I mean, all the track work is done, and I'm really having fun with scenery. So while I was building my layout, I learned a lot by my own because I am way in the boondocks. So I spent a lot of time watching videos and looking at pictures, which brings me to the clinic and the next 6 clinics on scenery. So why clinics on scenery? Well, if we ask, how do I do this? We will get lots of answers, and some will even say, this is how you do it. And if not, you're doing it wrong. I know I've been told a few times. So let me show you next slide, which is a picture of an example of the first clinic, which will be on terrain, basically elevation, mountains, rock cropping. And one thing I noticed is that there's a lot of techniques. I mean, you could all go watch them on YouTube or watch pictures of it. But what brought me to those clinics is that since there's a lot of ways of doing it, there's some cheap ways of doing it. There's expensive way. There's a lot of it is time consuming. Some are pretty fast. And some of them you need pretty much artistic talent. So this clinic here is mainly about scenery in general. What exactly do we see outside? And when I start with what I call the 6 pillars of scenery, which will start in February, if I'm not wrong, then we'll go into details in each of the pillars. So let's get started on what we really see out there as scenery. So I call this the 6 pillars, and that's because I've categorized them in different sections. So what is scenery? It's an element. It's elements like mountain, rivers, forests, buildings, skies, and the overall ambience, evoking a sense of place and setting for the observer. So what we'll do is, oh yeah, I forgot. There's two types of scenery. There's the nature scenery, which emphasizes the beauty and diversity of natural world, such as mountain, rivers, forests, etc. And then there's the human-built scenery. Human-built scenery showcases human ingenuity, culture, and urban development, such as structures, bridges, roads, etc. So first, let's look at terrain elevation. We often see pictures of layouts that are on, I'll say on a piece of plywood or just a framework, which is flat. But if you look at this topographic map that shows ground elevation, each brown line represents 100 feet elevation change, and the white area represents mainly flat areas. As you can see, areas are rarely flat unless you live in the Canadian prairies or mid-US. Oh, and as a side note, Florida is the flattest state with 52% of the area. So by looking at elevation like this, it really sticks out. It doesn't matter where you are, there's always going to be elevations. And I was looking at where I live. There's a farmer's land that grows corn on the cob, and it looks totally flat. But in the spring or winter, you could see that there's probably, I'd say, about 10 feet elevation between, let's say 1,000 feet. But 12, 14 feet, you're talking about 2 inches in no scale. So there is elevation when you really look at it. So next we'll look at some of the elements that create scenery. First, there's nature scenery, which is elevation like mountains, hills, outcrops. Vegetation, bushes, grass, weeds, flowers, trees. Oh, and the reason trees is in green here is because trees are going to have its own pillar, because there's so many techniques of doing trees that just having to go through them all is a clinic in itself. Then there's the water features such as river, streams, ponds, lakes, waterfalls. Human-built scenery, you got roads, asphalt, concrete, dirt, gravel, bridges. And then we have details such as lights, animals, people, signs, fences, etc. So first, let's take a look at terrain. Terrain is just a mix of hills, mountains, plains that makes up the ground you walk on. It's a natural shape and character of the Earth's surface. So now what we're going to see is basically different types of pictures to explain what I mean by each element. So we have terrain mountains. So some rocks facade are smooth, while others might be bumpy or jagged. The colors of the rocks can be different too. Some are gray, brown, or even a little red or orange. The sun might be shining on some parts, making them look bright, while other areas might be in the shade, looking darker. And if anybody's modeling winter, oh, here's a good example of where the snow should be. Hills. The hills goes up and down in a gentle way, and it's covered in soft grass. Some parts of the hill might have weeds, bushes, and flowers, make it even more colorful and denser. Picture some big rocks sticking out of the ground. These are called rock outcrops. They can be like nature's sculpture, sticking out in interesting shapes and sizes. Some rocks might be smooth, while others are rough and bumpy. The colors can vary too, gray, brown, or maybe even a mixed shade. The sun might be shining on them, creating shadows and highlights that makes the rocks look even more fascinating. These outcrops can be like outdoor art, adding characters and texture to the landscape. So when you're working on your layout, even though your layout is flat, you can just have like a 1 inch sticking out and just have a rock outcrop, which will really your uh, bring a look to your layout, not just flat. So now let's look at vegetation. Vegetation is just a fancy word for all the plants and green stuff growing in the area, such as grass, weeds, bushes, shrubs, flowers, vines, and trees. Imagine a big field with lots of green grass. It comes in all shapes and lengths. It's a simple and peaceful scene. It also it's also a common, simple, unexpected sight on less traveled sightings. The weeds are like shiny plants growing all over the place. Some might have flowers and others could be just plain green. The field looks a bit wild, but it's also full of life and color with all these different kind of weeds. The weeds can be skinny and tall, and they might have leaves or flowers on top. The wildness of the weeds create a bit of natural charm along the railways. You can see flowers are also flowers along the tracks make for colorful scene. So imagine a big field full of colored flowers. They come in all sorts of colors, red, blue, yellow, and more. Some flowers might be big and showy, while others are small and delicate. The field looks like a giant natural bouquet. Now, bushes are like groups of small leafy plants that stick together in the field. They're all over the place, creating a sort of natural garden. Some bushes might have tiny flowers or berries on them. These little leafy clusters add a touch of natural charm in the landscape. And bushes also can also create a corridor for the train tracks. Next are trees. By doing a little research for the Southeastern Ontario trees for our division clinic, I was able to find the top 3 trees that make up 85% of all the trees in the area with their average width and heights. It's amazing to think about the different types, size, and colors of trees out there. Each one brings its own unique beauty to the environment. Um, like I said, when I did the research for our division, and I was thinking of this clinic when I was going to give it, I mean, if you're out, I don't know, let's see, in Arizona, you won't have the same trees. But if you do a search on the internet to find out what kind of trees are in that area, what's their average height, what's the average circumference of the tree, and also the size of the trunk, that'll give you a good idea of what you could put on your layout. Um, in different places and time of the year, we see lots of beautiful views around us. The scenery change based on where we are and what season it is. Whether they're broad or tall, trees create a diverse and colorful landscape. Now, imagine a place that's all wet and squishy, kind of like a giant sponge. This is a soggy wetland area. The ground is soft and damp, and there might be water sitting around. Now, imagine a place, oh no, was going to say, so you might see all tall grasses and plants that like having their feet wet. Sometimes there are small ponds or pools of water. The depth of the wetland can vary widely depending on a specific type of wetland and its location. Okay, so now let's look at water. Bodies of water and scenery, whether they are streams, rivers, lakes, ponds, or oceans, they contribute significantly to the overall beauty and functionality of the landscape. So we have streams. They're like a tiny river. The water moves along, making a gentle sound as it travels over rocks and pebbles. You might see plants and bushes along the side. The stream is not wide, but the water could move fast, making a lively and cheerful sound as it rushes over rocks and stones. The stream is like a miniature river, always on the move. Then you have rivers. Rivers come in various types, each with its own characteristic based on factors like size, flow, and location. The river is like a lively ribbon of water, always on the move. Along its banks, you might find some trees hanging low and boulders getting a little wet from the splashing water. And, and of course, rivers can be very large also. I guess too large for a layout. Um, Ponds. The pond is like a tiny natural bathtub tucked into the land. Its water is calm, not rushing like a river, and you can see the surface reflecting the sky and trees around it. Unlike a small pond, this one is quite spacious. This large pond is a serene place, a bit like a peaceful oasis in nature where you can enjoy the stillness of the water and maybe even spot some ducks swimming around. A lake is a lake is like a massive natural water area surrounded by land. The water is calm and stretches far and wide. Around the lake, there might be trees standing tall, creating a green frame. It's a lovely scene where the lake meets the land, offering both the tranquility of water and the fun of its sandy shore. Rapids are like fast and bumpy parts of a river. The water rushes over the rocks and stones, creating lots of splashes and foam. Sometimes the water looks a bit frothy and white. Those are a really nice scene on layouts, if we can achieve the look of it. Falls have different width and heights. The water falls from a high place, splashing and crashing on the rocks below. Picture the water turning into misty clouds as it drops. So next, we look at roads. Um, so roads come in various types, each designed for specific purpose and varying transportation need. The ground of a dirt road is rough and made of soil, and when you walk on or drive on it, you might feel bumps and unevenness. And along the sides of the dirt road, there could be rocks, dust, or maybe even some plants growing in the middle of the road. Gravel roads are often used in less busy places, and they give you a different kind of feel compared to the smoothness of the paved road. They're a cost-effective and practical choice for roads in certain places where a smoother road might be too fancy or not suited for the conditions. The even and solid nature of asphalt contributes to a smoother and more comfortable ride for vehicles, emphasizing its popularity in creating enduring and resilient roadways, unless maintenance is not a priority. Concrete roads are picked because they're strong, durable, and can handle a lot of traffic without wearing out quickly. And concrete roads are commonly used for highways. Let's, let's not forget cobblestone roads are like something out of the past. You might see cobblestone roads in older parts of towns or cities. They bring a touch of nostalgia and a sense of history to the places they wind through. Now you can have covered bridge for both cars and trains. They were designed to protect the wooden structures from the weather. You might find them in more rural or historic areas. Stone block bridges can have an ancient and rugged look, often blending in with the natural surroundings. Stone block bridges are known for their durability and timeless appearance. And steel bridges are like modern giants of transportation. They're made of strong steel beams and girders to handle heavy loads and are known for their strength and efficiency. Each type of bridge has its own unique style and purpose, adding character to the scenery. Now, let's look at some details. You've got human elements, such as figurine, vehicles. You got wildlife elements, animal, fish, birds, and man-made elements, buildings, signs, fences, etc. So let's take a look at some of the details that could be that you will definitely see outside and you can incorporate into your layout. Figurines can be anywhere, and so can vehicles. Wildlife attracts people curiosity and bring life to water features. Structures can be found anywhere also, and in different shapes. So let's not forget there's so many types of fences. At one point, I think I was up to 12 types of fences, like besides wood and wire, oh, um, galvanized steel. Anyway, there's lots of fences. And let's not forget signs. It could be street signs, um, any signs really. And my favorite are utility poles um, with guy wires and anchors. So whenever you're driving around, look at the scenery, and when you get back to your layout, let your imagination take over. Bring your framework or your plywood base to life. Um, in the 7 years, well, when I started, I guess my mentor or the person that I looked at to give me ideas was Mike Caffalone. And there's been so many others since. And lately, his name is like this scene here was done by Evan Days from Minima Forma, has showcased an exceptional attention to detail, elevating the realism to an impressive level. His sceneries are really, really nice. And to be able to achieve this takes a lot of practice. And one thing I learned is you don't practice on your layout, you practice somewhere else. And so that gives me a lot of inspiration for my layout. So that pretty much covers all of, pretty much, yeah, it covers pretty much all what I want to say about what you see as scenery. And so what's next? We're going to do, well, I will, with the partnership of our division, present scenery clinics. On our ongoing scenery clinics, we'll look at diverse avenues for creating compelling landscape. We'll look at the costs consideration, ensuring that your scenic pursuit aligns with your budgetary constraints. We often hear that this hobby is getting expensive, but there's a lot of things that could be handmade. But then we'll look at time. A precious source will be thoughtfully addressed, offering insight into efficient methods that suit your schedule. That's because there's techniques that could take 3-4 days, while there's other techniques that will take half a day. So cost and time. And then finally, we'll tap into the realm of artistic capabilities, unlocking the creative potential that transforms scenery from ordinary to extraordinary. Now, again, if you don't have the talent, of course, you need to practice to achieve what you want to do. But all three will determine what's best for you. Like I said, some people have told me, well, if you don't do it this way, you're doing it wrong. Well, if I don't have the money to do it, I'll pick a different technique. I just have to master that technique to achieve something that I want or that I'm gonna like. So basically, during each pillar clinic, we aim to comprehensively explore various techniques. We'll talk about the factors such as cost, time, and skill level. And this will provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the diverse approaches available based on the individual preferences and resource. So we're going to have 6 pillars, 6 clinics, starting in February. The first one will be terrain. I'm just going to go back here. In our division, which is the St. Lawrence division from the NFR, NMRA, for the year, we've decided to work on one topic, and the topic was scenery. So what we do is we give one clinic on basically what you're going to be seeing is all the different techniques, and then we'll present 2 or 3 techniques that people can try. So in the afternoon, we have a hands-on clinic where everybody participates on one of those 2 or 3 techniques. And I gotta say, everybody's been having a lot of fun. So right now, we've done terrain, vegetation, water is being done in January. So you guys can follow with the same type of presentation. And what everybody likes is that it really takes you out of your comfort zone to try something different. Now, of course, when the members were working on the techniques, we would provide them with a base so they can practice on a base instead of practicing directly on the layout. So if you want to keep in mind, so we've got February, March, April, and we skip May, and then we have June, July, August. So the scenery clinics will look for every clinic. We're going to be looking at techniques, cost, time, and artistry. These clinics are ongoing with our NMRA division, and like I said, following the clinics, we have a hands-on for members to try different techniques and step out of their comfort zone. Okay, so yeah, so like I said, the subject was scenery, and what we also mentioned is that instead of how can I say? Since you're going to be participating in every technique, we suggested that people do a diorama. And the diorama will consist of all 6 pillars. So everyone was given a 16 by 24 styrofoam as a base. And on the first clinic, we showed them how to do a rock work with ceiling tiles. It's something that's very cheap, and there was, like, most of the people hadn't done ceiling tiles, so it was a one way of showing them how you can do that. Another one, also, once they were waiting for their glue to set, they were working on molds. We had the scenic woodland scenic molds, so everybody could try using different molds. So, but also we told them, like, everything that was going to be done. So to have some type of plan, and you could see some of the, I don't know if you can see, but some had drawn their plan, if you want, of what it was going to look like, because they needed where they were going to put like a little mountain. There was going to be a river or a stream or a pond. There's going to be like a water feature. There's going to be a road that they were going to work on. They were going to work on vegetation, and they're going to work on trees. So all this will be part of their diorama. And if any of you want to participate, get yourself a 16 by 24, like I said, styrofoam. And once we start the clinic, we'll tell you all the tools and equipment needed, material needed, and you could basically follow and do the same thing and have it ready for the next month, where we go into a different topic. It was well perceived, I can tell you. It was just the fact that it was out of the comfort zone and doing something totally new. So that should be about it. So I'm doing this with the collaboration of the St. Lawrence Division, because I might do a presentation, for example, on like the ceiling tiles. Somebody else, another member, would do a 10-minute presentation on the molds, and another member would do a presentation on sculpture mold. And this is how we're going to be doing it for our division, except that here in the presentation, I'm just repeating what some others have talked about. For example, when we do water, well, somebody will talk about epoxy resin, another one will talk about gel, another one will talk about Mod Podge, and then how to put waves on the surface. So everybody's really involved in our division to go over the scenery for the entire year. And that's it. Sorry, I went a little bit too fast, but that was about it.
Not a problem, Lloyd. Not a problem. We can go back over and we'll pick out some questions. I think some people will start posting some questions in the chat, and we can go from there. So let's go and have a little look. So scenery, you're quite passionate about the scenery work that you do. Have you actually attained your scenery AP certificate yet with the NMRA? Or
yeah, it's funny you ask, because say about half an hour ago, I was just advised that I did get my AP scenery. Everything checks out. So yeah, now I have it.
Excellent. Oh, congratulations. So you're on the road, as they say, to MMR.
But yes, scenery is, for me, I love scenery. I like to see people doing stuff to their layout that really sticks out. And I believe that just having, for example, having different elevations on your layout really represents what the land is supposed to look like.
Yes. Yeah. I noticed as well over the years you've added quite a few little animations into your layout as well. Can you give us is there going to be any, which episode, which of the 6 pillars do I need to tune into to get into the animation? I reckon that could be the sleeping 7th pillar.
To be honest, I never thought about it. There's so much that could be done. That goes into details, I guess. When you're doing a scene, like for example, where I have my 2 bridges, I've got hunters that are near the bridge. I've got I've got this. I've really put in a scene, and one of the things I want to do is put a sensor that when a train goes by, it will detect and play a sound of the water rushing, the ambient sound that you would normally find around there. But I don't think I want to go in there towards there. It will be mainly like details. For example, I've got a mining company, and the mining company is pretty big, the one from Walters. And if you have that on your layout, that means there's about, what, 20, 30 people working in there, 40, 50 people working?
Yes.
So you would kind of need a parking lot that's big enough to have about 40, 50 cars in it. But if you don't have the room for it, you got to create some type of story. So what I did is I put a bus basically bringing the people from the other side of the tracks, which is basically the aisle, and there's a road going in the back with a bus, and people are just walking towards the bus, like kind of their shift finished. It's
right.
Little details like that that would explain what's going on. It's just not a building. So when we get to the 6th pillar, which is details, that's when we will be looking at that. And
Okay.
And I know that our division, a lot of people can't wait for the trees, the tree scenery clinic, because with the, I'm sure you've seen so many trees being done with wires or plants that you find. I can't remember the name of the plant, but there's so many ways
sedum
of doing it.
the,
Yeah, that's it.
is
Or
the one they use here.
the wire with the cord in the middle. There's and there's so many of them. So we're going to go through a clinic showing all the different types of trees that you can build, and again, you decide on what you want. Just to give you an example, again, the mountains that and the elevation part, the terrain part.
Yes.
We found 8 ways of doing mountains.
Yes.
Now, of course, each one has also sub techniques. But the cheapest technique comes out to about, I think it was 23 cents or 25 cents a square foot. While the most expensive technique is almost like $2, $2.20 a square foot.
Yes. Yeah.
So, and there's one technique that takes about 4 or 5 days, and the other technique is you could have it done in the afternoon.
Yeah.
So to say that there's a good way or a wrong way, it really depends on the person. And that's what I want to show, is that you don't have to do it that way.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. There's multiple ways of doing things, and whatever's the easiest that works out for yourself. I'll have a look here. There's someone's put a sarcastic question in here. I think it's aimed at me, saying, how much scenery have I attempted? Well, in probably about the last 10 years, I think I made a 1 by 1 foot diorama. So that's about all the scenery I've done at the moment. You know my problem, rabbit holes. But anyway. So
Let me ask you.
yes.
I was going to say, we often hear where people say, okay, you do all your track work, you test your track work, and then you start doing your buildings, and then you do your scenery. I would say that's pretty much how the majority of the people would think.
Yes.
But I can say that on my layout, the tracks were not finished, and I was already working on scenery. And probably because the size of my layout, I just needed, how can I say it? Like I was never fed up. Like if I was to work on scenery for 3 days, then I would turn around and work on my wiring. And then
Yes.
there was always something interesting, and I couldn't wait to get to the next part.
Well, that's what I
So
tend to find. If you turn around and you do one thing and you say, right, I'm going to just do track laying now, get all the track down, you tend to go, I don't know, I tend to lose interest by about halfway through it and then drift off onto something else. Yeah, you're right. You've got to be disciplined and you've got to do a little bit on each part, I think, as you go along. But then again, there's no fixed way to really do it.
no,
It's all up to you. I mean, like I said, I've probably spent about 10 years and I haven't even got any scenery down. I haven't even got any track down on the actual scenic part of the layout. All I've done is played around with the electronics and the hidden storage and other rabbit holes to run down. But anyway, that's
yeah.
neither here nor there.
Mhm.
Let me have a
No,
little look. What other questions we may have here? A mini scene or a cameo scene can speak 1,000 words. It comes from Gary Rumming. And I'd say that Gary's got a very nice little layout. And as he says, you don't need to have a huge layout. Just a small scene can speak 1,000 words.
no, I was going to show
Yep,
you here, Marty. Like I said, we told people to build a diorama of about 16 by 24.
yep,
This is what I'm working on right now. So we've done the first stage, which was elevation. So you can see that
yes, yep,
my land is bumpy, if you want.
yep,
And then we had the vegetation. So what kind of vegetation to put on the on your diorama. And in January, we're going to be talking about water. So I've prepared the scene so that people can see how the water was done. And I might as well put in some details, but I was a little bit too in a hurry to put details. I should have waited. But then we're going to have,
they're ducks. I take it in the pond there.
yeah, they're ducks. They're from mini prints. And to paint that, I mean, that was small.
And the
And
stone wall you've got there, if you can zoom in on the old stone wall. So how did you put that together?
well, I built a jig with the right size of with the real dimensions of
Yes.
stone wall, and then I poured stones that I bought. I think it was a dollar store at the dollar store. They're 3/8 of an inch, and so what happens is that I take the stones, I put them in a cup, put some white glue, mix everything up. Then I
Yep.
put it in my jig, which is a U-shaped jig that's filled. But first I'll put wax paper inside the jig, shove
Yep.
everything in, tap it, let it dry for about a day or two, and take it out of the jig and paint and remove a
And
few a few rocks. It's
Oh,
very simple, but
yeah,
yeah,
pretty effective though. I mean, you know, an old stone wall can go anywhere. I mean, you know, you
yeah.
could
Not
do it
only in
with
Europe,
brick. Yeah.
and in 3 months we're going to be doing roads. So I'm ready to get the roads ready. And this here was the first clinic, which is to build like a rock wall, and this was done
Yeah.
with 3 pieces of molding, not molding, but plaster in the mold there from Woodland Scenics.
Okay. Yes. Yep.
So by doing that, everybody's touching everything that has to do with scenery, and then everybody could get their scenery AP.
Yeah, that's quite a neat little idea. Actually, making the little diorama to just to address all the different aspects of doing scenery. I mean, roads, detailed parts, power poles, structures. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah, no, great little idea. Um, that's what
So
I like when they have these little scenery comps where, you know, like I said, the last bit of scenery I did was a little 1 foot by 1 foot diorama for a local convention I went to here. Um, but yeah, some people have said maybe I should cut my layout up into 1 foot by 1 foot sections because I seem to have made that diorama very quickly, and then I could make a whole bunch of mini dioramas and join them together. But anyway,
yeah,
let me have a look what other questions or comments have been coming in. They're pretty quiet.
that's the 23rd of December. Here, let me just
23rd.
show you another one.
Yep.
I'll show you another one. This is
Yep.
for our water clinic in January. Now, this one here,
Okay.
okay, is done with gel,
Yep. That's focused. Yep. Yep. Cool.
okay? And this one here is done with Mod Podge.
Okay.
And I've got another one which is basically epoxy resin. But all three were, so that's what they're going to be working on. They're going to have a piece of 5 inch by 8 inch. They're going to carve
Yes.
to make a riverbed. And yeah, they're going to work on it. And for example, the, what do you call it? The edge of the rivers, I did that pretty fast, but I used to, I have some AK products, like
Yes.
mud, wet mud, dry mud. I decided to see if I could make my own, and I'm sure I'm not the first one to come up with it. Well, I had some dirt from outside,
Oh,
passed through a
yep. Yep.
sieve, and put some white glue and water and mix everything up, and yeah. So
Yeah. A
instead
lot of
of,
my
that's another
ground
way of
cover,
doing it.
I think a
So
lot of my
instead of,
ground cover I've ever used has come from the park next door, where I've gone over and collected a bucket of gravel or dirt and come back and sieved it, and hey presto.
Mhm. So again, so I'm going back to the clinics. It's to show that you could probably do a river for, oh gee, 10 cents a square foot, or you could do it with epoxy where it's going to cost you a little bit more than that.
Yes. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so that was the reason of the clinics.
So have you done much water with, say, the commercial products that are out there by Woodland Scenics or any of the other manufacturers, or have you generally
Yeah,
used?
I yeah, I've tried Woodland Scenics before they came out with the deep pour.
Yep.
And what happens when you don't read the instructions? I poured I poured half an inch, and it shrank and cracked, and I go, okay, that's not. Then I noticed that you got to pour only 1/8 of an inch. So if you're doing I don't know, 3/4 of an inch or an inch. So you got to do 3, 4 layers. And
Yes.
of course, it's going to be time consuming. You got to wait and hoping that everything goes right. Now there's deep pour. It's like my first, when I did my river, I bought epoxy resin and I was very happy with it. I was able to pour almost like an inch and a half,
Yes.
and I ran out of it. So last month I bought another set, but from a different manufacturing. And I was doing it, no problem, to realize that it says on the bottle maximum an eighth of an inch. And I go, oh, gee. So yeah, it's
Yes.
you got to make
We
sure
had
you
the
get the right.
same problem here with that product in Australia with the humidity, especially up in Queensland, and the further north you get, it expands and contracts quite a bit. And again, a friend of mine made a lake, and he poured about an inch and a half of it. And when it set, it was lovely, but about 2 days later, it expanded and it went off like a firecracker. I reckon if anyone was in the train room, they could have got a shard of Woodland's water in there flying at them, because it went off like an explosion.
But
Yes.
yeah, each product is good depending what you use it for. If you're going to put, like, for example, if you're going to put drops of acrylic paint to give it a tint,
Yes.
so it doesn't matter if it's not deep, because you're not going to see the bottom anyway.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
So, but if you want something clear, yeah, you can't go too heavy.
I always remember there's a modeler used to be around in Australia. It's well known, Jeff Knott, who's one of our NMRA members. If selfless plug here, if you actually are in Sacramento and you go to the History of Scale Model Railroading exhibit at the California State Rail Museum, the first thing you'll actually see when you come in is Jeff's layout. We had it shipped over from Australia to go in the museum there, but he has got this New England scene there, and he's got all the waves that are coming up on the beach. And I said to him one day, I said, how did you get the waves? How did you get the cresting motion and all that? What product did you use? And good old Jeff, everything was very basic. He said sealing paint from the hardware store and put it in the fridge for 2 or 3 days before you apply it. And it thickens it right out, and then you can make the curls of the waves or the crests coming up, and then go back later on and paint them. And I thought, how simple is that? Just take some simple old sealing paint, put it in the fridge for a few days, make sure no one mistakes it for yogurt and decides to drink it. And when you pull it out, it'll be nice and thick, and you can just apply it like a putty, sort of, almost. And anyway.
Or somebody would suggest also using some clear caulking, but with time it'll get yellowish, and you're going, oh no.
Oh, they're all having comments here about me breaking my layout down into smaller bits to actually get it finished. Ken and Darren were saying about the stone wall. That was very, very effective and fairly simple to put together when you think about it. Ken's saying, yes, we got to read instructions. So, yeah, if we're playing with that water, we better read some instructions. Make and take, drop the sections into a layout. Yeah, you could do. You could make those modules you're making as part of someone's layout if they wanted them to be. I mean, there's plenty of layouts that have been put together like that. I mean, Ken Patterson's layout's all basically foam modules that are sitting on tables, so he can pull out and swap and change and modify whatever he wants. That's a good idea. Jeff Knott was a master and a pleasure to chat with. Yes, he certainly was, Jeff, and very funny as well. very dry humour. But anyway, so what other comments you got there for us, Lloyd? What we've talked about the detailings part of it. We talked about the trees and how advanced and how things have changed. I mean, you think back 15 years ago. I mean, we were happy with a little plastic armature with a bit of green fluff sitting on the top of the armature to represent a tree. But now the detail that we're getting into is quite amazing.
Yeah, well,
I know two guys at our club are using that wire armature. And what they've done is one area where there's actually like a cliff face, and you can actually see the roots of the tree running down into the ground on the side of the cliff, you know. So the details.
Again, you see, this is that's pretty time consuming when you're having to twist all the wires, and usually those are for foreground trees.
Yes.
But I got into using sagebrush with super trees and cutting little bits and pieces of super trees and gluing them on the sagebrush, and just that will take me probably a good 2-3 hours to do one tree. So yeah, it is time consuming, but that's what I want to do.
Yes, yeah. Like you said, those armature type trees, the amount of work that you put into them, and the likes, they're usually foreground trees, and as we start to get further to the back, the quality starts to drop off. But anyway, let's have a quick look over here at the chat and see if I've missed anything here. You can drop into your layer. Oh, there you go. Split Rock is saying there might be a clinic coming up about scenery you can drop into your layout. So let's have a little look. Michael Robinson saying g'day from Adelaide. We got a few Australians in here today. It's funny about that. They're all getting up on a Sunday morning, Christmas Eve. I thought everybody would be in panic mode, trying to get everything ready for tomorrow, or in 2 days' time for you guys.
Yeah.
But no, I don't really see anything here. Have I missed anything, Brad? Let's go and have a look at the spreadsheet. No. He's given me the wind-up signal now. I can see all these email messages that have come through. So, Lloyd, it was great talking with you. We'll look forward to these clinics that you've got coming up. I think they're going to be well attended. And yes, thank you very, very much.
First one in February. Yeah.
First one in February. Yes. Keep your eyes out. The social media team will be posting info and schedules out. I think they've already started putting stuff up on Facebook and the like. So spread the word, and we'll see you in February. Thank you again, Lloyd.
Perfect. Okay. Take care.
Bye. Okay, welcome back. That was a quick break. I hope you all managed to get out and get a fresh beverage and get back to the computer screen or the TV. The next guest I would like to introduce is the current president of the Amherst Railway Society and the show director for the Railroad Hobby Show for the past 20 years. He's going to be here to give us a bit of a chat about the history of the Amherst Railway Society and a quick behind the scenes look at how the show's put together. And for you Australians who are out there, this is the biggest model railway show in the world. I went last year for the first time, and I can tell you it's the only model railway show I've ever been to where one of the major manufacturers hires a fleet of minibuses to ferry people out to the car park and back again. I mean, we'd be lucky if we had enough room to actually get a minibus in some of our shows, never mind actually having it running out to the car park. But anyway, no further ado from me. I'll hand it over. I'd like to introduce John Sacerdote from the Amherst Railway Society. Over to you, John.
Thanks, Marty. And thanks for having me, too. And I appreciate it. It is that time of the year, even though it's a holiday coming up. It's right after the holidays where it becomes my favorite time of the year. And I've got two things to talk about. Let me give you a little background about how all this started, and then I'll tell you about what it's like in preparation for the show. And we'll start at a timeline that pictures the show just ending, and I'll take you through what it's all about. But the Amherst Railway Society, even though we're headquartered in a town about 30 miles away, started in Amherst, Massachusetts, and it was started by a bunch of college professors. And having been an old teacher myself, I picture these guys sitting around in the faculty lounge, if you will, and all of a sudden, somebody says something about trains, and the guy next to him says, "Wait a minute, you play with trains? I play with trains." And that's generally how it exactly started. And this was back in the early 60s. So a bunch of college professors were starting to talk about it. It grew into a couple of the master's candidates, so we had some grad students involved as well. And they said, well, we should do something about this. Let's have a night where we all bring our stuff in, and we'll use one of the classrooms, and we'll just look at what everybody's been working on. And then that's actually how it started. So the first recorded minutes of all of this, after about 4 or 5 years, was in actually it was early 68. And there was a notation in the log, and I actually have the notation here. And it actually says, unusually large collection of locomotives and cars displayed. And there were 68 members at the time. It was very informal. There was no dues or anything like that. So it continued until they said, well, other people from the outside world want to hear about this, want to see what they're doing. So in the mid 70s, they actually started using the student union for an exhibit hall, and they were asking for donations no more than $2. So it was pretty funny. And what happened is they just outgrew the student union. Oh gosh, sometime in 81, I think, was the last year at the student union. And they actually had to move somewhere. There was no place bigger. So they actually approached the Eastern States Exhibition people, and they had a building down there called the New England Center. It's nowadays used for storage. And I mean, it's packed 20 feet high with benches and programs and different things that they use for their 17-day long show, which is it's probably the 5th or 6th largest agricultural show in the United States. This past year, they just broke another record. They had 1.53 million people in 17 days. So we took that New England Center, and it was a one-day show for 4 hours. So it was interesting, but people wanted to get in. People wanted to see more. There were people at the door when we were closing. So we moved after 3 years in the New England Center to what's called the Better Living Center. Everybody around here calls it the BLC. And we took half the building back when they had a curtain across it. Now, the Better Living Center is 135,000 square feet. So we had around 65, 70,000 square feet, somewhere in that neighborhood. And it grew after 2 years of taking the entire space, moved across the walkway to the Young building, which was another 53,000 square feet. Then the Stroh building, which is another small building, about another 20,000 square feet. And that's when I came on board. I said, geez, there's a couple more buildings there. And people were waiting. At one point, we had a 6-year waiting list. And now it's down to about 2 years. And the waiting list we'll talk about in a second. But I said we could fill another building. So there was the Mallory complex, and we took it slow. We took the front half of the Mallory complex, and that was about 15,000 square feet. So that didn't last long, 1 year. And then we started growing into the back of the Mallory complex to the point where this year we have taken it all. That's 150,000 square feet. So if you add it all up, counting our outdoor space where we have some outdoor displays, live steam locomotives in the past. This year we have a rail bus. Looks like a real bus, only it's on rails. It rides on the rails. We take over 350,000 square feet. There are no additional buildings that are weathered. So this is as big as it's ever going to get. And there's no other place in all of New England. When I became show director 21 years ago, we looked. And the only place is Boston or Jacob Javits in New York. Jacob Javits has 1 million square feet. Couldn't go there because it's close to $60, $70 a day to park. Couldn't go to Boston because they only have about 250,000 square feet. So we're at the Big E for quite a while. And they treat us really well. And honestly, we are the largest show there other than the actual fair that they have late September, early October. So it's been interesting. And for the last couple of years, knock on wood, weather's been great. And we've had a show consecutively for 55 years other than 2021 with COVID. The one and only year that we didn't have a show. But what we did is we had a marathon virtual show. We were on the air for about 8 or 9 hours on Saturday and 8 or 9 hours on Sunday. And honestly, Sunday night, because I was the host, as you can imagine, for the whole thing. And we had a lot of guests, and it really saved us by having that virtual show. There were a lot of specials, a lot of people doing a lot of things, but I couldn't talk. For Sunday night, I was done. And Monday, I couldn't speak at all. It was pretty funny. So that was basically the history now of the show as involved by the Amherst Railway Society. The Amherst Railway Society started back in those days when I said, and we decided let's do more. So we actually have a headquarters now in Palmer, Massachusetts, and we're building a model railroad in the basement. We're starting a garden railroad out back. We have an acre of property, and we've already got a nice plan, and we're working with folks at the town to make sure we're all in code and all of that good stuff. So there's a lot to do and see when you come to our headquarters. And we've started a lot of things with this theme called Kids on Track. And really, if you, this will get morbid just for a second, and I apologize, but when I call people to see, hey, are you coming this year? Are you coming this year to the train show? Every year for 21 years, I've had at least one person die. And it saddens me a great deal because we're older in this hobby. And so we've got to do something for the kids. So we're doing this Kids on Track, and it's kind of like a kids job fair. We have all the local railroad clubs in the area come up to the Union Station in Springfield, Massachusetts, newly restored, beautiful station. And we have a job fair. In other words, we just show our trains and say, if you're interested in joining, here's where we're located. And there's 7 or 8 different clubs up there. We did it again for Halloween. And we said, bring a costume and you can ride the train, CT Rail, which runs from Springfield, Massachusetts down to New Haven. We did a turnaround in Hartford. We got off. They had trick-or-treat bags waiting for us in Hartford. So the whole thing down 40 minutes, 15 minutes on the platform with goodies, 15 minutes back. We sold it out in less than a week, 240 kids. And we still had 20 or so show up at Union Station. There's no way we were going to refuse anybody, little kids in costumes with their parents. Are you kidding me? So we had over 250 people ride down. What a riot with all these kids and parents in costumes. So our Kids on Track program is really, really doing well. We've been working with the NMRA about how we could do more. And one of the greatest things that's happened is for this second year in a row, you're having all your meetings during our show. And it really is allowing us to work with you guys and come up with better ideas, how we can work together. And we love that kind of stuff. So that basically is the history. If you're ever up in the area, we're open every Saturday, not this Saturday or next Saturday because of the holidays, but we're open on Saturday mornings, and we give tours. And if you're a kid and you want to help work on projects, it's all under supervision. And we're building a 4x6 railroad, and we've got a Z scale railroad, an HO scale, an N scale, an ON30 railroad. You can see a piece of it behind me, and our HO railroad downstairs, and we've got a G scale time saver, which is a blast for kids. But what's funny is how to teach them to do a runaround. To this day, we still have op sessions every Tuesday night. And with a group of over 250, you can imagine there's plenty of layouts to go to. So Tuesday nights is our op session night, and Friday night is our work session night. So big round robin, and you're welcome to attend any of the railroads that are open on either the Friday evening for a work session or Tuesday for an op session. We just had an op session last Tuesday, and we had about 24, 25 guys there in a very large double scale, double deck railroad, HO scale. So that's always a lot of fun. Dispatcher, signals, the whole bit. So some of these guys have some pretty nice railroads. So it's a lot of fun. And I'll tell you, the way we roll, if you don't want to run a train, don't worry. Just come on up and shoot the bull with us for a couple hours. So it'll allow us to just get together. One of our guys who has since retired has said it's his weekly men's club. And while he uses that term loosely, there are some women that come and operate with us too, which we love. So that's a great thing. So if you're ever up in this area, get a hold of me and I'll let you know what's going on either on a Tuesday or a Friday or a Saturday if you're up there. And even if we're not open, just come on up and I'll show you. I can arrange to have you guys see a couple of really nice railroads. So it'll allow us to do that. So we're always looking for fresh ideas. We just had a board meeting this past Wednesday. And at the end of the year, I always say, all right, guys, what are some fresh ideas that you could come up with that we could spread the word and get the community involved in everything. So we've got some good ideas coming up. We're going to introduce some of them at the train show. And it just goes on and on and on. My term as president is up in June. We have a 2-year term. Then I am the immediate past president. But prior to my term, I was the president-elect rather than a vice president. So it's a 4-year commitment as president. You're president-elect, then president for 2 years, and immediate past president. And I tend to always be on the board anyways because I am the show director, and there's a show committee. For those of you that don't know, our largest source of income as a small nonprofit that we are, we're a 501c3, is the train show. And all the money that we make after our expenses for the year, which includes running our building, we give it all away in a formal grant program. And we've given away since 1991, we've given away over $850,000 to other deserving nonprofits that have something to do with railroads. And that includes libraries, scholarships to rail camp, all that kind of stuff. So we're really getting real close to the $1 million mark. And at this rate, it'll probably take 3 to 5 years at the rate that we're giving. So we have a formal grant program that goes live right after our train show. There's about a 2-month a period where you could apply, and then we get together and figure out who's deserving and which programs are closer to completion that we could help complete, all that kind of stuff. So lots going on here. And if you care to join, it's really a lot of fun, and the cost is next to nothing. Right now, it's only $5 a month. Not that I'm looking for members, but just to let you know, if you go to the website, amherstrail.org, lots going on, and you could visit that. We also have railroadhobbyshow.com, which is a website dedicated to the show that's coming up at the end of January. And you're welcome to go there and see what's going on as well. In that website, it actually shows the show history. And if you see my eyes averting cheat sheet, that's where I was getting a lot of information about what years, because I can't remember all the years that we started and did all that stuff. But it's all there for you, along with a couple of videos of us being interviewed by local public broadcasting stations, that kind of thing. So there we go from there. So save your questions for this, and I'm gonna change subjects now, guys, to the train show. So right now I am in the height of it all. I just published the second version of the exhibitors list and the second version of the map within this past week. The exhibitors list just went up, second version, early this morning. So, and I still don't have it right. As soon as I publish, someone says, "John, I want to move," and all of that. So, and I'm playing that slide game. Remember when we were kids, we had that little tiny 1 through 15, and it had 16 slots, and you have to slide everything around so all the numbers are in a row. I used to love that game, actually. That's what I do when I'm assigning tables, trying to make it all fit. And anybody that asks for anything, I really try to comply the best I can. And as soon as I published, someone said, "Yeah, but I needed an extra table," and I went, So I'll slide things around, and we'll get someone what they need, because they're all reasonable requests, and any reasonable request, we're going to try like a son of a gun to comply. All right, so timeline. The show just ended. All right, so we do nothing during February. The first 3 days of the week after the show, I actually go up there Monday and make sure all the shipping is out. We try to help folks by being our own drayage company. So you ship things to the show, and we'll be up there to make sure it gets picked up. We have forklifts up there, so we'll try to help people. So Monday at noon is when we usually get everything shipped out. I go home. That's it. I wake up on Wednesday. And very seriously, it's not full, but I sleep for about 2.5 days on and off because I am just exhausted. They give me a great hotel room up at the grounds. I'm never there. I'm there for like 4 hours a night. So it's interesting. So now it's the middle of February, and I'm kind of recouping now. So March 1st, it starts all over again. So this truly is year round. So March 1st, we start with hotel contracts. And now that we have the Northeast Regional Large Scale Train Show, our contracts include that April show as well as the following year. And if you go to railroadhobbyshow.com and look at about the show and look at accommodations in the area, there's quite a few hotels there that we contract with, guys, to get some really great rates. Beware this year, and I'm glad I was able to say this, there's been a couple of sites that are spinoffs of Expedia. They're legitimate sites, but they're offering full rates at a lot of the hotels. Hey, we've organized this list of Railroad Hobby Show hotels. It's all at full price. So go to our website, which is truly the correct website to go to. Example, the Sheridan, they were offering $275 a night. Our rate for the show is $109. And a couple people made the mistake of going through Expedia and paying full price. Go to our website, because people contract with us for years, guys, and we have some great hotel rates. So keep that in mind as well. So we contract with hotels, usually get the contracts back by the end of April. It usually takes about 30 to 60 days. And in the meantime, we're starting already to look at who wants to return to the show. So we have this great piece of software that controls it all. It's a company that I used to work for up until just a year ago. And I did computer training for years. And I did that after owning my own computer company for a number of years. And the software that we use is all about matching people to openings. It was actually employment software. And Gordy actually did some work for a third-party company who knows the company that I used to work for. So we have a little connection there from their offices in the UK. But anyways, we use this great software, and it matches space to the people that have contracts. So it's interesting stuff. So it's all computerized. It's all cloud-based. I could get to it from my cell phone from anywhere. I don't have to worry about backups, because it backups automatically all the time. So we start working on whoever went to the show the year before, it does an auto copy of the contracts for the new year. And then we look and see if there's any special notes that we have to do. I want an extra table, that kind of stuff. So we'll work on that for April, May, and June. And we're talking, guys, this year we sent out 460 contracts to 460 different exhibitors. Now, believe it or not, the show is as full as I've ever seen it in the years that I've been doing this. The show is absolutely full. There's not a single table left, not one. And in all of the buildings, I think I could squeeze maybe another 6 or 7 tables in the Stroh building. And that's the smallest and oldest of the buildings, but there's still some great exhibitors in there. And the people that are in there, they don't want to move. And I don't want them to move because I can't fit them anywhere else anyway. So for the first time ever, and this goes back to before the holiday, right around the 1st of December, I had no tables left. And I said, whoa. And of the 460 contracts, yeah, people cancel. So we have 375 exhibitors coming to the show. So we had a lot of cancellations, people that retired, don't want to come back. It was too crazy for them. We've actually had people tell us there's too many people at the show. Last year we had just over 18, I think it was 18,300 paid, but there's 3,700 people in the show. So when you're there on Friday setting up, there's 4,000 people there, counting our volunteers and everything, and people are buying actually. So anyways, back to getting the contracts set up. They go out the door the last day in July. So we're working for 2-3 solid months to make sure all the contracts are set up. All the documentation is new for the next year. Then we send contracts out in July, end of July, first week in August. They have to be already out the door. The danger of that is it's 6 months before the show. And so we get a rash of people at the end of October. I don't know where my contract is. It's because we sent it 2 or 3 months ago, but we can't help it. It takes that long to get everything in order. So contracts come back and we have an early bird. So if you send your contract back and you're paying for tables, if you're nonprofit, if you're a layout, you do not pay for tables. So if you're selling, you pay for tables. And if you bring your contract into us early, you get a 10% discount. And there's a final deadline towards the end of October. And this year, because there were so many people and I had limited space, I actually, for the first time ever, chopped some contracts. If you miss the deadline, I canceled your contract. And I hate doing that. And we had about 10 or so people said, "No, I forgot, please." And we were able to take care of them. So it worked out well. So contracts are out the door. And so I wait to the end of the contracts to get in. So right around the end of October, the first part of November, I start assigning tables. But everybody has notes. And picture a rectangle of 10 tables, guys. And let's say there's 5 people with 2 tables, right? So that's the 10. 3 out of the 5 say, "John, I want another table, but I don't want to move." So it's impossible. So I call up and I say, "This guy, do you mind moving?" And they don't want to move because people know where they are. So part of the dilemma for me is the show I want to keep fresh, but all the exhibitors love where they are. People know where they are. They don't want to move, yet they all want more space. So something's got to give. And it usually works out okay. I can move people to another heavily trafficked area. And I say, "Look, if you don't like it, I'll move you back the following year. Not a problem." So that usually works out well. But this year, after all of the notes, I'm looking and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I've got no space. So the Better Living Center filled up first. And that guys, there's 750 tables in there. Altogether, there's like 1,500 tables. In the back of Mallory, there's 20 layouts. We usually do 12-foot aisles, even though the fire marshal says 10. We had to sneak it down to 11, 10, 6, because we have so many layouts in the back of Mallory, interspersed with tables and sales and all that kind of stuff. But we've never had more layouts. There's over 60 operating railroads in the entire show this year. So interesting stuff. So a lot of new exhibitors. We could talk about a couple of the exhibitors that are new that we're really excited about. in a few minutes. So now, right around mid-November, I'm getting close to publish. I've never missed the deadline of December 1st and 2nd, or that first weekend, depending on when it falls. This year was 1st, 2nd. We published the map for the first time and the first iteration of the map. And there's maybe a 340 exhibitors on it because I still haven't heard from some people. And I know they want in the show. So we try to be as good as we can, but we'll make phone calls. We'll make dozens of phone calls. Are you coming? And they will go, of course I'm coming. I said, well, the conversation goes just like this. I said, when were you going to tell me? And they go, oh, John, and it's just funny. And it's not always the same folks, but we'll do everything we can. We'll send emails out to say, hey, look, this is your last warning. And then we always call anyway. So it's not a great thing to publicize because people go, oh, he'll call me anyway. But, this year we surprised a few people by canceling contracts because we had to. There was just no space available. So it was interesting stuff. So now that we're published, we also need to gather ads for our booklet. We have a booklet that shows who's where, a couple of our notations, when our in-house clinics are. We run 2 days of clinics prior to the show. Guys, we're asking for the NMRA to help us next year on clinics. So we want to do more together. That's one of the ways we're going to be able to do it. So we're going to be able to do that. But we've got 2 days jammed of clinics. And so you come to the clinics on Thursday, Friday, you get a 2-day pass to the show automatically. And then it's a 4-day event. This year, we've got extra things going on as well. We've got a 7.25 layout large that's open, and they're going to show you their shops. We've got what's called a shop hop, and there's a 5 to 6 yarn, fabric, knitting companies that are doing discounts for people that come from the show. Marty mentioned that we do have shuttles. So we have sponsored shuttles from Union Station to the show. We space them out. So they run about every 15, 20 minutes. They're free because they're sponsored by a couple of our fantastic manufacturers. And this year, CT Rail, which runs from New Haven up to New Haven, is running extra cars on the train, on several trains. They do 7 trains in each direction a day. So they're putting a couple extra cars on a couple extra trains on Saturday and Sunday, and even Friday. We just had a meeting with them down at their headquarters in New Haven this past Tuesday. So they're doing all kinds of extra stuff. And so we want this to be a 4 or 5 day extravaganza, culminating in the largest trade show in I heard Marty say the world. Marty, that's probably true. I can't prove that, but I can prove it's the biggest trade show in North America, not only in square footage and in attendance, but also in sales. And the way I backed into that, guys, is I found out what the total number of sales tax was, and it was considerable. So I used that and backed into, well, if 6.25% is almost $500,000, then 100% is like over $10 million in sales at this show on the weekend. The other way I tell is from the 8 ATM machines that are there. 2 of them have 2 trays, and if you know ATMs, which we have to, 6 of them have a single tray, 2 of them have a double tray. So that's like 10 trays. Each tray holds $60,000. They're empty. When they had only 6, they were empty Saturday. They were, and so people were scrambling on Sunday. But so you're talking about over $500,000 in cash that transacts at that show. So that's how we know we like to say we're the largest dollar grossing trade show. And if you talk to some of our exhibitors about how much they sell and some of the bargains that you could find there, I got to believe that's probably true on certain years. So interesting stuff as far as that's concerned, guys. So now I get contracts back that I have to adjust. This is all through December. Things happen. In the old days, I'm only the second show director, but in the old days, what used to happen was if you canceled, you were in serious trouble. And I don't go that route. People get sick, people have accidents, people's wives, exhibitors' wives or husbands break a leg or something like that, or they get sick, especially in these post-COVID years. Call us, tell us what's going on. If you cancel, we'll reserve your spot. It depends on what time of the year it is for if you want a refund. Right now, you're still eligible for a refund. January, if you cancel in January, no refund. But if and we take it on a case by case basis, we'll apply that money to the following year. So we try to be as fair as we possibly can, knowing that there's things that we have to pay for. For example, we get 1,500 tables. Well, tables were $10. So you're talking $15,000 just for 8-foot tables. They just went up to $15. So now you're talking, oh my, quite a bit of expense. So only when we're forced to raise the prices, it is because of the expenses going up, and it's about 3.5% every year. So, but we've held prices to the show to $15 for the past 5 years, and we're still trying to hold as long as we can. But those darn expenses, and it's it's just life, guys. Those expenses keep going up. So we also will sometimes, depending on the weather, get tents to connect the buildings so that you're not out in the weather, that kind of thing. But one of the things we offer, and people get a chuckle out of this, is this show is so extreme, especially on Saturday, guys. We offer a bio break, uh, uh, for lack of a better word, a bio break service. And what that means is if you come into the show alone, you're making a mistake because you're talking about 7 or 8 people deep in the aisles. And it's hard to take 2 minutes away to get to the bathroom. And this is out of necessity. We learned the hard way, actually. So we actually will man your tables while you take a break and go to the bathroom because there's no other time you can do it because it's just non-stop 7, 8 people deep, usually on Saturday. It does thin a little bit. We'll get 13,000 on 10, between 10, 11,000 and 13,000 on our best year on a Saturday. We'll get between 8 and 10 on Sunday. And more families on Sunday, but people hang around the end of the show on Sunday for the bargains because a lot of guys don't want to take stuff back with them, guys. After 15 hours a day standing on concrete, they're tired. And when we've asked, do you want to extend the show? We'll start like at 6 p.m. on Friday. We do surveys every once in a while. The majority said, no freaking way. No, we're dead already. And honestly, we get there on Wednesday. So when it's time to set up for the show, which is the last part of what I want to talk to you about, and I'm there from Wednesday morning, and by the time the show opens Saturday morning, I can't walk. It's just shin splints from walking on cement for 3 solid days. So we're in the middle of a couple of cancellations. I call the wait list of which there are 200 people on it. I could fill tables in one call because people want to come to this show. So occasionally 2 or 3 calls, that kind of thing, depending on the tables. So the tables will be full. We actually have standby service. It works just like the railroad, the airlines. If you don't show up by 8:30 the morning of the show, 30 minutes before your flight takes off, so to speak, your tables are forfeit. And the people that are there with trucks and stuff will take those tables. You've got to let us know if you're not going to be there by 8:30 or you'll lose your tables. So we have standby service, and we take a list of who's on standby in the order of which they're on standby. So it's very different, this show. So what happens when it's the week of the show, usually what will happen, I back up a little bit, the Friday after New Year. So this Friday, it's January 5th. We'll have what I call a pre-con meeting from my old days of meeting planning. We'll go to the Big E. We'll sit with their staff, our staff, the lead floor managers, the people that take money, and we'll figure out, okay, what do we need this year that's different from last year? It is so routine now because we've been working with them forever. They just made a cake for us last year because it was our 40th consecutive year that we were with the Big E. Not counting COVID because we had contracts with them, but obviously the health department closed us. But so we've been with them forever. So they are so good to work with. So when we go into that meeting, boom, 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 go through the agenda, any changes, we're out in 35 minutes. And we know exactly who's going to be where, when, who's going to where place the ticket booths, everything. So that's done on, and that's going to be done this year, January 5th. And so then we show up on Wednesday of show week, and we go across the street to a restaurant where we actually draw a tab for the duration of the show. And all the volunteers and the guys that are floor managers, we meet every morning, 6 a.m. They open an hour early for us, and we just talk about what's going to happen for the show. But we'll go there first on Wednesday, then we'll go over to the Big E, and we'll start surveying the building. And it's not the same every year because it depends on how many tables, where they're going to be placed. So we have to survey the building. Now, the building, it was shot a few years back with laser. So we're accurate in all of the buildings to about 2 or 3 inches. And back in those days, we used to have to measure with tape and all of this kind of stuff. We still do, but we know exactly where every pole is, and we know the dimensions of the concrete where the creases are made. So we'll use all of those dimensions to chalk out where every single table goes. And then we have another crew following the surveyors that set up tables. And guys, 8-foot tables, they're wood, so they're not light. So we have a crew of a couple dozen guys. All they do is set up tables. God bless them. And then they lock them into place. They just stand them up. And then there's another crew that places them in the right spot. So this happens this has to be done. We can't leave Thursday night unless it's done, because everybody comes in Friday morning for setup. We used to do this in one day, but when the show got so big, we needed 2 extra days. So when it was just the Better Living Center, set that up in one day, easy. So we'd come in Thursday afternoon, and then we'd be all set for people. Now we have to come in Wednesday morning because we've got 4 buildings, and they're different every year. Well, the Stroh building and the Young building is pretty much the same, but Better Living Center is very different this year. Mallory is like, oh my gosh, we had to really rearrange everything to fit all these railroads. Some of which, guys, are like the Reading Club. They have a 20-foot wide railroad by 160 feet long. And it actually won Best in Show last year. So we do have contests for Best in Show layout, Best in Show module, and we actually have a silly one, Best in Show module, least amount of scenery. And really, that's kind of like a little kick. Come on, scenic this module, will you? And so it's pretty silly. And when you show up with just plywood, you're going to win. So it's silly. And people go, no, I said, put some scenery on it. So it's silly. So that's usually what happens. But now we have layouts that are so large, our own Amherst belt lines, 8 scale miles of track. So you're talking a huge amount of area. The Reading Railroad, we let railroads layouts come in from noon on Thursday. We chalk out the railroad space. There's usually no tables there until they set them up inside their area. But we chalk out the corners of where the railroads are going to be, the layouts are going to be, and they get to set up early because they need the time. And a lot of these railroads now have cameras and monitors, so you can watch the trains, and you can wave when the train is going by you and all of that kind of stuff, which is a lot of fun for the kids too. So lots of railroads where kids can play too. The Lego layout this year, guys, they started, John, we did a 20 by 20 space. That was maybe 6-7 years ago. Then 20 by 30. Now, then 20 by 40. This year, 20 by 80. I said, what? So the largest Lego layout, and it's really fun to watch. So you'll check it out. The New Hampshire Garden Railroad, guys, is 70 by 90, and it's a G scale layout that they set up. So there's some incredibly huge railroads, and then there's some S scale railroads. There's HO scale, there's N scale, and the N-track people are there, and they've got a huge layout as well. So, gosh, you could spend all one day looking at just railroads. So I had a friend from Chicago who's a model railroad crazy come up, and they said, "Well, how do we do this?" And they said, "Well, let us figure it out." So they started at table 1, and it goes all the way up to 70 in the first building, then 71 to 100, and so on. So then 100 to 120 in Stroh, and then 121 on up to 170 for the different sections in the Mallory building. The first day they got to section 21, and the guy had already spent $3,000. And he says, I don't know what I'm going to do. I said, well, you're never going to see anything at this rate. But he was spending a lot of money. So it was hysterical because he had never seen anything this large before. So that's how crazy this show can be. So after we set up, we usually have pizzas on one of those nights, and the Hobby Manufacturers Association has their meeting there because everybody that's a member on the board is there, and that's what led the NMRA to have their meetings there. Gordy said to me a couple of years back, he goes, "John, we'd love to have all our meetings at your show because there's more people at your show than any other show of our people." And I said, "Yeah, come on." And so I made room for a 20 by 20 booth, carpeted, padded, and we've got a lounge for the NMRA this year, private lounge upstairs, all kinds of cool stuff. And we've got room for the board. We had our clinic room used for the board meeting last year, not formal enough. So we've got extra rooms at the Sheridan where the board meeting is going to take place, and we've got stuff coming for breakfast, stuff coming for lunch. So we're taking good care of the NMRA, and it's a great partnership. So we love it. So it'll allow us to do that. So guys, by Sunday night, what we used to do, we used to clean up and not leave until until it was done. Sunday night, I was there back in the early days till after midnight. And so we go around 9 or 10 and we go, the heck with this. And then a bunch of us come back, about a dozen of us come back for our final breakfast at the restaurant across the street. And we clean up, and we actually have the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts come in on Thursday night to set up table to help us with the numbering of the tables. And then they break all the tables down on Sunday and pile them against the poles. So they help us, and we make a sizable donation to the Boy Scouts and Girl Scouts every year. That's not part of our grant program. I can't count that in the $850,000, although we've given them several thousand a year for 50 years. But anyways, we just try to be fair about everything that we do. So we're done about noon on Monday, and then we go and have a final lunch at the restaurant across the place. You wouldn't believe what a incentive food is for volunteers, guys. They love it. So the other day we have to tape our section numbers up. Well, they finally gave us permission to use these clamps that clamp to I-beams, for stringing cable and computer wire and stuff. So they're there permanently. And now all we have to do is hang the signs up there. So we were in there for only 2 hours about 2 weeks ago. And the incentive, I said, I need volunteers. And the incentive is as soon as we're done, we go across the street for lunch. Instantly had 12 guys sign up. It's all in jest, of course, and they know. And honestly, they deserve it because those guys that show up work really hard. And we were out of that building in 2 hours, and we're running around with ladders and all of that kind of stuff. So it was fun. So guys, I know we're getting close to time where you might want to ask some questions and such. What happens is after that, then it's time for me to hibernate for another 3 days, and the whole thing starts over again. So it's interesting. And when am I going to stop? I mentioned to the board 2 years ago, I wanted 2024 to be my last show, and they said no. It was real easy. No. And honestly, I really thought about it, and I'm having too much fun. So I'm here for at least another couple of years. We've been asked to do the 2026 National Garden Railway Convention, the national convention, at the hotel and at the Big E. So I'll be around to at least that, and then we'll see. I've actually got guys shadowing me now just to learn. But I have got guys, I've got it right here in front of me, a master to-do list. It's an Excel spreadsheet with 453 different items on it that I have to do every year, and it's all as
But
far as I can chronological. And so I'm chipping away at it. It's actually in pretty good shape at this point. There's some things you can't do until the week of the show, that kind of thing. But it's
that's right.
everything from organizing the banquet for the show to setting up the meetings, putting computer drops in for high speed because Virtual Railfan streams the show live from three of the
Yes.
four buildings, all kinds of crazy details. So,
Yeah, that's a
and
big
I
hit
could,
down here.
yeah, guys, I could go on forever, but let's leave some time for some dialogue here. So
Not a
Marty, help
problem.
me out.
I've had a look over here. I think Brad might be getting a couple of questions together to put in the spreadsheet for me, or I'll dig them out of YouTube. But yes, as I said to the Australians, after last year was my first attempt at getting to Amherst, and coming from Queensland and Australia, where we're in a subtropical climate, to suddenly being in Amherst, where you have this mystical white stuff on the floor called snow, which I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I'd seen photos of it, but yeah, it was an eye opener. And as I said to all my friends here, I said, look, it's like going to the Mecca of model railroading. It's a pilgrimage you've got to make. If you can get over there, because you'll never see anything as big and as much as you'll see at Amherst. I mean, to give you an example, in Australia, our big train shows are usually in the big capital cities. So Brisbane, Melbourne, and Sydney are probably the biggest. And the venues that they have would be about the size of the Young Building, and that would be it. So that's why I say this has to be the biggest one in the world, because I know there's nothing in Australia, and I'd say with the space constraints that you have in Europe or the UK, I don't think there's any train shows over there that would come anywhere near the size of Amherst. I mean, I was just gobsmacked when I walked into the Mallory building and I saw one layout, and I'm walking and walking and walking, and it's still the same layout. And I'm walking and walking and walking, and it's still the same layout. And I'm going, you just don't see anything like this in Australia. The size of the layouts that get brought by different organisations and the likes over there. So I know I got about 5 people from my local NMRA division are all coming over for the show, and then they're travelling on to I think the toy show in Frankfurt or something like that as well. But there's about 4 or 5 of them that are coming over, and they're all really looking forward to seeing the show and seeing the hustle and bustle. I notice on the floor plan, it's up on your website there in the list of all the exhibitors. And I tell you what, I'm really chuffed that you've got a competition for me to enter. You were talking about the module with the least amount of scenery. Well, I reckon knowing the people out there who know me, I reckon I can probably take that one home. I reckon I can probably go to Walmart when I get there and buy a bit of plywood and come down and just nail a bit of track to it, and there we go. See if I can get someone to slip it into a module somewhere, and Bob's your uncle. But anyway, let's have a little look at what we've got here in the chat. Their plans. Are there plans for? Someone was asking the question here. Succession planning. Do you have a person underneath you that's ready to take the reins to
Yes, Marty.
keep the ball rolling?
Actually, I have a booklet. I have a train show directory, and it's got my to-do list in it in a great deal of detail, and the different departments, like floor managers, lead floor managers, volunteer chair, everything you need to do. And I've got, we've decided that I don't know why, but it takes more than one person to run this show. I've been doing this kind of thing many years in a previous life. So, and I do have a show office manager, but we're dividing the tasks for the show into two guys. So we're going to have co-directors. I think it's just going to be easier on folks and it'll make them last longer. So yeah, the big part of any kind of nonprofit, guys, is succession planning. And, and, uh,
Yep.
and so we have a pretty good plan in place. And I've got two guys already shadowing me. Um,
Cool.
they're coming to all my meetings, etc. So yeah, we've
Yep.
got plans for someone, but I'll be around for a couple more years. I used to tell people this was a job very similar to the Pope. You did this until you died. But I want to enjoy myself. I was just down on my railroad, my HO scale railroad in my basement. I said, geez, I haven't touched this in a couple of years. It's terrible. I mean, we have an occasional op session, but I want to build more and I haven't been able to. So it's still.
Gary was asking for an Australian wishing to get across there in the future, what sort of time days would I want at Amherst? Well, I'd say, Gary, you'd probably want about from the Wednesday before to the Sunday of the show. And that will give you the 2 days of clinics.
Yeah. Marty, if someone's coming from that far away, and I've been down, I did some training down in Sydney a few years back. So I know you're coming up on your summer now. But if you're coming from that distance, it's a heck of a train of a train ride of an airplane ride. And can you imagine train? But come early. Come early. We'll put together a package for you that lets you go to the clinic. If you don't want to go to the clinics, come and volunteer. We'll give you a volunteer badge. Help us, and then you could see what it's like to help set up the show. And it's not heavy work. Some of the things you do. But if you're coming early and you want to make something out of it, and you want us to help, just let us know. Email me, showdirector@amherstrail.org, and we'll come up with something for you.
Excellent. Let's have a little look here. A lot of people are saying it's well worth going. Save your pennies to get across there. Split Rock was asking about the shuttles. Do they run to the convention hotels?
Yeah, they make 2 stops at the hotels. First of all, most of the hotels are all within walking distance anyway, but the shuttle will leave Union Station, Springfield, and then it'll head down Main Street, and then it'll take a right where the Memorial Bridge is, which is the same road that the show is on. But it stops right in between the Sheraton and the Marriott, the 2 biggest hotels. But the La Quinta is right there, and there's a couple other hotels that are 2 or 3 blocks away where you could walk to the lobby of those hotels or walk to Union Station. La Quinta is only 2 blocks from Union Station lobby. You can walk a couple blocks there, and then you'll take a ride. The show, actually, the fairgrounds folks have Uber and Lyft dispatch stations, so where you could drop off and pick up. And that's inside the gates. They'll drop you off right by our main entrance. So there's all kinds of ways to get there. But if you take the shuttle, it's free.
Beautiful. Dan was asking, he said, I'm a bit behind, so maybe it's already been answered, but how much was the cost of membership to the Amherst Model Railroad Society and the requirements to be a person or a member? Asking for a friend, he says.
Yeah, no requirements other than join. And even if it's just to support us, the dues are $60 a year. So it's $5 a month. And it's to me, guys, that's, as president, business guy, that's low. We have a building that we have to support. And I don't know of anybody that has a 3,000 square foot building with a under construction railroad out back and in the basement where the dues are $5. But that's what they are, and we welcome that, and it's working, and we've got about 250 members right now, and we'd love more.
Excellent. Well, I think having a look here, what do we got? Let's go down the bottom. If there's any more, I'm probably going to get the wind-up signal from Brad any minute now.
Sure.
Saying we're coming up to the top of the hour, but I mean, I can't talk more about Amherst. I mean, it just blew me away last year as someone coming from far-flung colonies and thinking a train show in Sydney was big. And then I rolled up and found out that I wasn't going to see all of this today or tomorrow, but I need to plan to where I'm going. And I would give that as a piece of advice to anybody that's going, is download the floor plans and get a highlighter and mark where you want to go and see. Because if you're like me and you want to amble down the aisles, there's no way known you'll get that done in 2 days around this event. You really need to sort of pick out what you're going to see, I think. Anyhow, it's getting to the top of the hour. I'm getting the wind up from the production people here. They'll sack me and dock my pay apparently if I run over the hour. So, John, many thanks for your time, and that was really interesting. The background of the train show and what's going on. I mean, it really is a big event. And you and all the people at Amherst should be commended highly for the work that you do, and the fact that the majority of all the funds from this end up going to charities and get donated in the end. I really think that's a real sterling effort. I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Not a problem. I'll see you in a couple of weeks after I get out of the pressurized toothpaste tube. And and work out what time of day, and that the fact that the cars all go backwards over here, and the likes. And I will see you then. And thank you very much for your time today.
You're quite welcome, Marty. Thank you so much, and the NMRA for having me on. I really appreciate that.
Thank you. See you soon, John.
Oh, I hope so. Yep, absolutely. Take care.
Bye.
Welcome back. NMRAx here on the 23rd of December, 2023. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays to all of those who are indeed watching, or maybe watching it a little later. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix, and our next presenter had been building the split rock mining company layout for the past 15 years. The layout had been featured on the cover of 4 magazines, an NMRA calendar, and also numerous articles in print and online. OPSIC's Dispatcher magazine has an upcoming article on the current operations of the layout, so please go check that out. He worked as a locomotive engineer for over 20 years at Union Pacific and also co-hosts the Crossing Gate podcast, which, by the way, has the sponsor section in his lovely wife Diane's voice. The Split Rock Mining Company can be found on Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. Please welcome the Superintendent of the Twin Cities Division, Thomas Gasior.
Hello, everyone. How are you doing, Speed?
Always good.
Always good, always good. So, I'll explain today what I'm going to show you is a video on how I create scenery using florist foam. This allows me to make stuff at my bench, the typical florist foam you get from the craft. I've made a combination of techniques from Mike Rose and Luke Towen and modified it to fit my needs through scenic, my layout, and others. So I'm going to show you how I do the foam, static grass. We'll go to ground foam, how I create bushes, birch trees, and all kinds of pine trees, and ready to photograph it. So I hope this is enlightening. And I think we're ready. If you want to roll it there, Brad. Hello, everyone. I'm Thomas Gasior, and today I'm going to show you how I create all my scenery on my workbench. Everything you see in these scenes on my layout have been created on my workbench using florist foam and some simple techniques that I've learned from articles, videos, and in-person visits to other layouts. As you look at these scenes, all of the hills in the background have been created with florist foam. It's been carved to shape. I then add static grass, small shrubs, some custom bushes, trees, and tall pine trees to create the scenes on my layout to represent northern Minnesota. In this video tutorial, I will show you how to carve the florist foam, how to add the static grass, then we'll work our way up from ground foam to bushes to birch trees and then pine trees and create a complete scene. I will show you how I create those hills in the background, those highly detailed pine trees, the birch trees standing next to them, the tall bushes, plus the small shrubs and the grasses. Using the florist foam, you can create all of these scenic elements away from your layout. You do not have to have the mess and the glue and the static grass going everywhere where you don't need it. You can control everything and keep your layout environment clean. All of these terrain features are created with florist foam. They've been carved to fit and to shape, and then everything you see on them was added at the workbench with only a small amount of blending to make it fit into the scene on my layout. And this is the type of florist foam you want. You want the Flora Craft. I go to my local crafting store. It happens to be a Michael's. They have a large selection, and it actually now comes in 2 different colors, green or white. Here is the display for the florist foam. You can see it comes in all different sizes and shapes. I try and get the largest piece I can and use one of their handy coupons. Now they also sell this dry foam. You do not want this. If you try and carve this, it will just turn into dust. Make sure you get the floral foam. Here is the florist foam we will be using. I also have a old serrated knife. It's very dull, but it works great to shape this. I then go on to a handheld rasp to give it the final form. I like how this works on it. I also use liquid nails as an adhesive to attach the pieces to each other and to my layout. And then of course the static grass, the smaller 2mm works great. I like the mesh strainer type of static grass applicator. It can get into many places that the tall ones cannot. Of course, I just use standard carpenter's glue to attach the grass. I'll be using this old cardboard box and create a diorama using the florist foam techniques. I just painted it blue, have some sky on there. I put some foam down for some tracks. I will attach some flex track later and apply some ballast. The rear portion is where we will put our scenery that we create on our workbench. I will be using 2 pieces of florist foam to get the correct length for our diorama. I will use liquid nails to attach them to each other. I will also put a piece of solid core wire between the 2 pieces end to end to reinforce the joint a little more. The adhesive is now dried, and now it's time to start the carving. We're gonna knock down these edges, make everything look a little more rounded for nature. We'll start with the serrated knife and then go on to the rasp. The rough outline is done. Now I'll use the rasp to do the final touches on it. As you can see, this makes quite a mess, so have your shop vac handy. This is one of the main reasons I like doing scenery on my workbench. Now adding the static grass. I learned this trick from the war gamers when they make dioramas, is you do not have to stick a nail into the scenery to conduct the electricity. You just have to follow around the little clip underneath the static grass applicator. You can cover a lot of ground this way. And here's another reason I like building scenery on my workbench. I can flip it on its side and get the materials onto the vertical location. So it's time to make some trees. Here we have a pile of super tree material. That's one of our supplies. We'll also need this tweezers. I also use these optic visors to see, because we're going to use the tweezers to pluck out what I call the banana leaf. So I've picked out a bunch of material that looks closest to birch trees. And now I've got my tweezers and I'm going to start pulling out these long leaves because it just makes a better looking tree, in my opinion, if you don't have these hanging off near the branches. You want to use the tweezers and you want to grab these leaves right next to what I would call the trunk and pull it off and get as many off as you can for a really good looking birch tree. The trees are all plucked, as I call it. I have my pile of long leaves over here. And we also have a pile of excess material that has fallen off the trees. Now, do not discard this. This is valuable material for scenery, and I'll show you in the next segment. The trees now are very curvy or curly, or however you want to call them. Birch trees are fairly straight. So I will show you my method on how I create very straight birch trees out of these super trees. And here is what I use. A large pot of boiling water. I put the trees in there. I let them go for 20 minutes. Then I come back and stir them around and flip them over and let them boil for another 20 minutes. Make sure you have a lid on it. It does not smell up the house. It actually smells like tea brewing. Now you're wondering, what do I do with these soggy trees that I've strained through the colander here? Well, I hang them upside down. I put up a wire and I clip them with clothespins upside down. The trick is to add weight to basically the top of the tree, and I add the weight by adding more clothespins, more and more until the tree is straight. And then I leave it overnight, and while they dry, they will retain this straight shape. This is how I attach the trees and the bushes to the florist foam scenery. I use a hot glue gun and I find some pins. I have a cutter here and I either cut up safety pins or woodland scenery T-pins, and I start storing them in a little container, and I'll show you what we do next. Here is our dried trees. Look at how straight they are. Those are going to make great looking birch trees. And instead of just trying to push these into the florist foam, I use a pin hot glued to the bottom. The glue for the static grass will form a shell that makes it difficult to push pins through. You'll see when we start applying the scenery. Put a little bead of hot glue on a pin or on the tree and glue them together, and when it dries, we stick it in a scrap piece of foam. Time to paint. Of course, birch trees are white. Grab a spray bomb and head outside, give them a good coat, and then we'll get back to them the next day. We have the pins that we cut earlier, the excess tree material, and our hot glue gun ready to go. And now let's combine them to make some bushes. So you need the stem from the bush, and you hot glue that to a pin, just like you did the trees, and start sticking them in a scrap piece of foam. Just a hint, but you can never make enough of these. Time to paint our bushes, something dark or tan colored. I have this can of camouflage paint handy. I'll use that. I'll paint the whole tray and then we'll let it dry and come back to them tomorrow. The birch trees are dry. Time to add the distinctive black marks. Some black paint, tiny brush. I also find a magic marker works wonderful for doing this. Those are some good-looking birch trees. Now let's add the foliage on those birch trees. I like to use Scenic Express Knock leaves in variety of green colors. They also have fall colors, but I don't use those as I am modeling July. Find some small cups to pour the leaves out into so you can sprinkle them on the trees once you apply the glue. And here comes my favorite glue. Aquanet hairspray. All-weather hairspray. It's also unscented, that helps. And this is only if you can't find any white rain. Our cups are filled with a variety of colors. We've got our bushes here all dry from being painted. So we take the hairspray and spray the bush over a trash can, come back and sprinkle on whatever color you desire, and stick it in a spare piece of foam. We do the same thing for the trees. Spray the top and sprinkle on the leaves. Try not to get any on the trunk. I add the leaves over the cup to save on products. I get 1/4-inch sticks, usually found at art stores. I also have a hobby knife for whittling to take away the corners. And also a ruler, so I can measure the length of the tree if I want a 60, 80, or 100-foot tall tree. And I use a hobby knife to cut that to the correct length. I also have some sandpaper to smooth out the balsa wood. And a Zona saw, which I'll use to create a bark effect on the bottom. Florist wire, 24 gauge works great. Also something to cut that with. And some nails. We'll use these to stick into the bottom of the tree trunk so we can stick the tree into the florist foam. And also pliers to stick the florist wire into the tree and some CA glue. have the balsa wood shaped like a pine tree, we're going to use the Zona saw and scrape it vertically down the base to give it the impression of tree bark. Take the nails and use our cutters to cut off the top. And then we'll use the pointy end to make a hole in the bottom of the tree, put some super glue on it, and then push the dull end back up into the tree. Time to make the tree branches. We're going to get our 24 gauge florist wire, a handy cutter, and we're going to cut these in 1 inch or a little bit longer lengths. And we're going to cut a lot of these and then put them in a little storage container. And once we have enough, we'll get back to adding them to the tree. Adding the branches to the tree, we'll have our handy CA glue. We'll get a Woodland Scenics T-pin, and of course all the florist wire we cut for branches. And we'll use the pin to pre-poke some holes into the balsa wood to make things easier. Then we'll use the pliers and dip the florist wire into the CA adhesive, and then shove that into the hole in the balsa wood. The balsa is soft enough to take it, and the CA glue will make sure it stays. Our trees are now looking like something Charlie Brown would really be proud of. So we'll get our wire cutters and we'll cut off the longer branches that don't seem to fit. And then we'll taper all the branches down at an angle, like a good pine tree. After we do that, it's time to paint. And we'll get out a nice dark primer, paint that bark. Now that the trees are painted, let's add the needles. Let's get our trees to look like this one right here. And we're going to do that by using static grass. we're going to use 4mm static grass in a variety of colors. 3 greens and straw colored. Another tool we'll need will be a flat paintbrush and of course our glue, and you can use aerosol or pumps. What we are not going to use is the static grass applicator. We have our 4 cups filled with the static grass. We have our glue, and we're going to start with the straw colored static grass. We're going to apply 2 coats. We're going to try to not get any on the trunk. The brush is used to pat down the needles if they're sticking straight up. We want to have them pointing out or downward. Now we will add the colors. We will add the light on the bottom, the medium green in the middle, the dark green on the top. And then after all those are added, we will do some blending. Now we will use the dark green and blend that over the entire tree. I'll use the medium green to blend from the middle down, and the light green, one more coat on the bottom, and then we'll sprinkle on some straw. I believe these are good looking pine trees you can have in the foreground. You can see through them like an actual pine tree, and they photograph really well. If you're going to go outside and photograph these, I would recommend spraying a dull coat over them. Otherwise, you can seal them with more hairspray after you've finished applying the needles. The straw makes nice dead branches for the bottom of the tree. The static grass has dried. Now I'm going to apply Scenic Express Super Turf, and I like these in a variety of green colors as well. It's a little more texture than the Woodland Scenics ground foam. I apply this by using glue at first, and then I will use a wetting agent such as alcohol from a pipette, and then drip Woodland Scenic cement over the top to make sure everything is sealed. Now it has dried. I've used a variety of colors. I've broken up the ridges, and as you can see, nothing's coming off. No muss, no fuss. None of that is on the layout. If it did, it's on my workbench and it's easy to clean. So now we can bring it over to the layout or our diorama. It fits just fine. You can see the track. I've painted it and put some ballast on there. Now it's just time to blend. But first I'm going to tack it down with some liquid nails, put some weight on it, let that sit for a while. And then I'll use the white glue and I'll put that down between the diorama and my florist foam and start adding the ground foam. Now we are getting to the really fun part. It's time to add those bushes and birch trees and pine trees that we created. You'll need a needle nose pair of pliers, and you'll want to grab the bushes by the pin at the bottom. You're going to have to push hard to get through that shell, but once they're through, they're going to stick. Another advantage to florist foam is I can stick these bushes in on the vertical surfaces. I can have them sticking straight out towards the front of my layout. Let's add the pine trees. Notice the branches on the bottom. I tried to simulate dead branches by putting straw on there. Try to keep the pine trees vertical or straight as you can. If one of the bushes breaks, save the pin for the next project, and then take the top of the bush and just stuff it in there somewhere. Birch trees tend to grow in large clumps, and the super trees don't work very well when you're trying to push them together because of the large foliage at top. So here is what I created to beat this problem. And I use this on my layout, and they're basically fake birch trees. Here in my shadow box, you can see how I created these fake birch trees. They're basically solid strand wire I painted white and added black stripes to. And I stripped the bottom to allow it to push into the florist foam scenery. I buy a variety of sizes of wire to show different size tree trunks. I go to the hardware store and buy it by the foot and then cut it to lengths. On the areas that are not in the shadow box but have the actual super trees, I will stick the wire in there and push the top into the crown of the tree so you can't tell where the wire ends. birch trees look great at this point, but there's one more problem to solve, and that's when you can look through your forest and see the sky backdrop. But I have a solution for this. Notice you cannot see through my forest. It is dark back there, and it looks like it goes on forever. But if I remove a piece of foam core that I painted black, you can then see the backdrop. I used foam core and painted it black and put it behind my scenery, but I now have some black corrugated plastic, and I will just cut this to shape to fit the floral foam scenery that I created. I think this really changes the appearance, especially if you're looking at your scenery from eye level.
Wow. Tom, I am so glad I modeled a desert scene and don't have to build any trees because that was just marvelous. So we have a few questions here if you're ready.
I'm
How many
ready.
trees? How many trees on the Split Rock Mining Company layout?
Not 28,000. So for Michelle, I would say over 500 and probably 1,000. Probably about 1,000 I made. So
So someone asked, is that foam hard or the kind that you can shape just pushing your fingers on it?
it is the hard foam. I know they make two types, the dry foam. This is the type that you can just push your finger in. Don't use this. Use the floral foam, the darker green or the white one.
Okay. If you decide you want to add more color to an already sprinkled tree, can you spray the Aquanet again without damaging the tree?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. When I'm done with a tree, I usually give it one more coat of the adhesive that I'm using. And you can come back and add any type of color for some fall foliage on the top or dead leaves. Yeah, it's really a neat trick that you can keep adding layers and layers of the color of your choice on these trees.
So you explained somewhere that you do the different colors at different heights.
Yes,
D-
yes. On On the coniferous trees, I'll do a dark at the top, medium in the middle, and light at the bottom, and then blend it all with the dark green static grass, and then sprinkle on the bottom some of the straw colored to show dying needles on a pine tree.
Now, at some point you said you spray paint the trees.
Yes. Yeah, I spray paint the pine trees after I've added the branches using the florist foam. So once I've got the branches in the trees, then I'll take them outside and just hit them with a spray can of a dark or a tan or some. I'll vary it up between groups of trees.
Okay.
And once they're painted, then add the static grass, and I don't have to paint them anymore.
Okay. So there's no dull coat or other things needed to fade them in or out, like we do with boxcars.
Correct. Mr. Towan showed on his video that he uses a dull coat on his trees because he films outside and he didn't want a real shine. I haven't had that problem with my LED lighting and things. I have heard of people spraying some to get a different color, but that's a lot of work for me when you can just color it with the static grass as you put it on.
Okay. So someone said, what are your thoughts? We have heard people say soak the trees in glycerin.
I think they're talking about the super trees. There's a lot of ways to go at it. Method I showed is because I need straighter trees. I saw Michelle mention something about aspen trees, and the glycerin wouldn't help for what I'm making. The only other step I may add is after I've boiled them and I hang them up, before I hang them up, I would dip them in a mixture of thinned Mod Podge or white glue. And then when the glue hardens, then the tree won't even try to get back to its original curly shape. But I've never used the glycerin trick, but I have seen others who are making a more oaks or elm type forest there.
So then someone asked, do you remove the insulation from the wire?
The wire, like I said, for the pine trees, no, because it's not a wire, it's a florist wire. But the wire for the fake birch trees, I do strip the bottom because it makes it easier to poke into the florist foam.
Okay. So I believe Michelle asked, would you use the same method as the birch trees to create an aspen grove?
Yes. In fact, good friend of mine, another MMR up in Canada, is modeling the Colorado narrow gauge, and he showed me this method for building, his 1,000 aspen trees. He painted the trunks a little different color and used maybe more golden leaves. But if I was making aspens, I would do this, and I'd also make, the fake trunks to put in there because aspens grow in a rather thick clump too. Aspens are the Colorado birch tree. I think that'd be an excellent way to model that.
So quick question, what would you do to increase the depth of field on a plain foam layout?
Depth of field on a plain foam layout. Some type of backdrop. If you're trying to do it in person, I like the little black, behind the trees, so it doesn't look 2 inches deep. It looks a lot deeper. If you're going to photograph it, maybe drop a green screen and put in a backdrop or something. But like most of my scenes are not more than a foot deep, but you feel like they're in the forest. You feel like you're deep in there, if that's the question.
No, I think if it's Marty asking, then it could also be a plywood layout. It doesn't necessarily have to be foam.
Oh, okay.
Okay, a few more scenery questions that we got earlier.
Yeah.
What is the best advice for realistic scenery?
The best advice, and what I use, is layering from top to bottom, static grass to ground foam to medium-sized bushes, medium trees to taller trees. and also from front to back. You want to layer your colors, layer your height, layer your textures. If you're doing ground foam, use all kinds of different ground foams you can find instead of one. You want to break up the golf course look. Static grass, every 4 inches should have a different color possibly, or a different length.
What was your most difficult scenery project?
The most difficult one in tree making was my willow tree. I only made one. That's got over 500 individual branches. And currently, what is difficult for me is water. I'm not very good at making water. I have some small pond scenes and a little lake, but I also have a huge harbor scene for my ore dock, and that's going to be a while before I get to that. So water is difficult for me. That's a challenge.
So, second last question, what is next on the split rock?
Next will be finishing up scenes on my upper level. I have a yard office and an engine facility, and then I will be going to urban scenery for the small town on the North Shore of Lake Superior I have. So that'll be quite different, making structures instead of trees in the North Woods.
Cool. Now, I was fortunate to visit Thomas Layout, I believe, last year in October, November, and it is a definite must. Okay, so call the local authorities to get a warrant or something so they can lock him up while you visit his layout. That way you don't have to go through the whole permission process. You can just sneak in, take 1,000 photos and get out. So where can they find more information on the Split Rock Mining Company layout?
That's good. You can find more on Facebook. I have a Facebook page for the Split Rock Mining Company. I'm on YouTube, of course, at Split Rock. Just started on TikTok, which is very interesting. And of course, anywhere on the Twin Cities Division groups page, you can get a hold of me there and ask any questions you want. I have no secrets, and I'll probably ask you more questions than you ask me. So, yeah.
Well, Tom, thank you very, very much for an awesome clinic. We will see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Welcome back. I'm Speed at the bottom of the helix here with a last clinic of NMRAx. Our next presenters include an N-scale model railroader. He served as treasurer and now superintendent of the Cajun division and is also the Pacific Southwest region treasurer. He has been busy on the SurfLiner convention committee as finance director and now co-chair the whole endeavor. He models the New York, Ontario, and Western Railway and has an existing, mostly scenic 150 square foot layout designed for operations. Our main speaker tonight has been an active member of the NMRA since 2011, starting almost immediately as Los Angeles Division Membership Co-Chair, and then advanced from Division Director to PSR Vice President, and is now in his second term as PSR President. In November 2021, he took on the chairmanship of the NMRA National Convention, SurfLiner 2024. As a native Southern Californian, he looks forward to sharing with the world all that his region will have to offer to us. Please welcome Pat Raymer and Joel Morse.
Hi, everybody. Thanks for staying with us here.
Howdy.
I'm Pat Raymer, and
I'm not.
Joel Morse, and he's not. That's Joel Morse. So we're going to present tonight a high-level overview of the SurfLiner 2024 NMRA National Convention that's going to be in Long Beach, August 4th through 11th. The planning of any convention is kind of a fluid and changing thing, so that's why I say high level. Anything that you see on here can be subject to change mostly. There are some things that are set in stone. So let's move on, and that's me, that's him. Here we go. Oh, Brad, can you roll the video? Let's do that now. Hello, Brad? I'm sorry, say again? Is the video done?
Yes, go.
Oh, okay, thank you. All righty. Here we go. Let's start with where is Long Beach? For those of you that aren't familiar, Long Beach is in Southern California along the coast. From Los Angeles, you'll see up there, there's Long Beach at the bottom of your screen. Right there where the star is. Now, how do you get to Long Beach is a good question. Star at the upper left-hand corner there is Los Angeles International Airport, or LAX. The next star you're seeing, LGB, that's Long Beach Airport. And down there in your lower right-hand corner, the SNA, that is Orange County Airport, also known as John Wayne Airport in the past. And there are the airports that are the airlines that serve those airports. LAX has all major airlines flying into it. Long Beach has Delta, Hawaiian, and Southwest. And there's SNA. These are all the airlines that were flying into these airports as of the spring of this year. So you may want to check and make sure that all that is current when you book your airline reservations. The another way to get here is via Amtrak. You'll see Los Angeles Union Station on the map there, and there's where Long Beach is, the bottom. And you can take the Metro Blue Line, now the A line, from LA Union Station to Long Beach. The Blue Line is, I'm sorry. The Blue Line takes a little over an hour, about to get to Long Beach from Los Angeles Union Station, and the station for the Blue Line in Long Beach is about a block away from the hotel. There's a flyway bus from LAX to Union Station that leaves every half hour, and it can get you to Union Station for $9.75. Or of course, you could always just jump in the family car and drive on down. So let's continue on here. Here's our hotel, the Westin Long Beach. You can see it's a beautiful hotel. It's full amenities, restaurant and bar. It's 1 block away from the Long Beach Convention Center. That's where the National Train Show is going to be held. The beach is 2 blocks away. So you've gotten here. What do we do now? So the events in the hotel, we're going to have those clinics, of course. Special interest groups are getting together. We're going to have an operating layout in the hotel. Fingers crossed on that. Celebration of models, the contest room, of course. There's going to be a president's reception, banquet, non-real activities. We'll drill down on each of these items as we continue on. Now, beyond the hotel, outside the hotel, there's going to be layout tours, prototype tours, operations, general interest tours, non-real luncheon, and sightseeing. So we really have something for everyone. Bring the family, come early, make it a vacation destination in August. Joel, you want to jump in and have anything to say about that?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much to do for the family, and I think one of the things we love about the location, Long Beach is central to the LA basin. So if you want to go to the iconic beach towns of Seal Beach or Venice Beach or Laguna Beach, they're all relatively close. Long Beach, of course, has its own beach, also the Queen Mary. We'll talk about some of the non-rail activities. Of course, Disneyland is about 25 to 30 minutes away. Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios. Really, there is, as Pat said, something for everybody. So we encourage you. This could be a fantastic family vacation. You're enjoying the trains while the family is doing the stuff they want to do. I actually checked the Dodgers schedule. If there's any Dodger fans out there, they'll be in town. Unfortunately, the Angels will be out of town most of the time. and the LA Galaxy and LA, the other LA soccer team will be off. So, but there's something for everybody in the LA Basin. So, and Long Beach will be the place to be. And the weather's fine in August.
Let me just mention real quick, our convention rate at the Westin Hotel is available from July 29th through August 18th. So you get the same great rate before and after the convention. So you really can just make it a vacation for the entire family if you'd like to do that. So let's jump in here and see some of the things we've got going on. Of course, here's some of the clinic subjects. We're building our clinic list right now. There'll be these subjects and many more, and we're going to have a live Zoom clinic room where people can Zoom in clinics from around the world.
You won't, let's clarify that, you won't be able to watch clinics from around the world, but you will be able to see clinics zoomed in from around the world.
Exactly.
The host will be elsewhere.
Right. So our special interest groups, let's start with OPSIG. Joel, you want to address that a little bit?
Yeah, so OPSIG, my layout is, as Speed mentioned, as an N-scale layout of New York, Ontario, and Western in 1954. It's 150 square feet in my garage. We'll have a couple of operating sessions there. There's also another dozen or so operating layouts in the area. So there's plenty of operational opportunities if that's your thing. And there's some really good operating layouts. If you go to also there'll be layout tours. Pat, go ahead and advance if you would. So the layout design tour, there'll be layout tours, both bus-wise and individual, and then the layout design SIG will have their own tour that they'll put together, and we're working with the SIG folks now to make that happen.
Yeah, the plan now is to have the OPSIG and LDSIG tours as self-drive tours. We are going to have bus tours, and of layouts. We're going to talk about that in a minute. So some of the other special interest groups we're going to have is the LCC, Open LCB group, CMRI, the Women in Model Railroading SIG, and the historical societies, particularly the local ones, Santa Fe, Southern Pacific, and UP. And more to come. So the celebration room, of course, something that everybody enjoys going to, I'm sure. We're going to have, again, top modelers displaying their work in there. Bring your models, photos, arts, and crafts. If you haven't been to a national convention before, you can put any of these items in the contest room and have them evaluated. And there you go, evaluations for the achievement program. Now, and of course the popular vote. The awards. Let me move on with my notes. The awards dinner is going to be on Thursday night, which is pretty common for the national contest room. If anybody out there wants to give a clinic, we're looking for clinicians right now. We're in the process of building our clinic list. So if you want to, go ahead to our website, SurfLiner2024.org, and click on the clinics tab, and you'll find a clinician proposal form on the website. Then we're going to have a president's reception. We're going to meet with the NMRA president. There's going to be a little get together for everybody. You can meet some of the members of the national organizations, talk to them, and that is open to all registered members, not just the administration. Then, of course, we're going to have the awards banquet on Saturday night. That's going to be a plated dinner where the NMRA National Awards are going to be presented, and we are working on our keynote speaker right now, and I think it'll be a very interesting speaker if the fellow I've been talking with is going to be able to clear his calendar. Then here's a little side note. There's going to be an after party after the banquet, be live music and dancing, kind of in the spirit of Hollywood. After the awards, there's always after parties. All right, then we'll have a non-rail room featuring all the things you see on the screen here. Project Linus is a very worthwhile project that happens year to year with the NMRA National Convention. There'll be quilting going on there with Project Linus. We create these blankets and then they are donated to local children's charities. And speaking of the non-rail, we're going to have the non-rail luncheon at a place that may look like this. We don't have an exact location chosen yet, but it will be very nice. So let's move on to some of the layout tours. So we're going to have both bus and self-drive tours. We're in the planning process of that right now. We have a huge number of layouts in Southern California, and we do have kind of a logistics issue, especially with the traffic here. So we're going to try and get out to some really great layouts on the bus, and then you'll also be able to drive yourself as well. So this is just a sampling of some of the layouts we're going to see, and you may have seen some of these layouts featured in the NMRA magazine. The Pasadena Model Railroad Museum was founded in 1940. It's a huge layout. They just hosted a operating session for NMRA members only in November in honor of National Model Railroad Month. We had a great time there. They're wonderful people, and it really is a must-see. This picture doesn't do it justice for the scale. Joel was there operating as well. I think he had a good time.
It was great. It was an interesting layout in the old school style, but very well built, very nicely done, and very exciting to operate on.
Yep. This is the Gary and Sandy Railroad. This is kind of the opposite of the Pasadena Model Railroad Museum. This is a nice, compact little layout in their front room. I've operated on it numerous times, as has my wife, and the era is just charming, you know, right around the turn of the last century, and it's another must-see. It's really a great little layout.
This layout is owned by Gary Butts, who's a master model railroader, and over the years he's a machinist by trade, so he scratch builds locomotives amongst other things. So it's pretty impressive to see this layout and operate on it.
Yeah, and on his wall you can actually see the first place winner in the national contest for a steam locomotive displayed. So yeah, he really is an artist. He's a great guy too. Let's see, Joel, whose layout is this?
This is my N-scale layout. We operate every other month right now. It's 7 operators, a dispatcher, yardmaster, assistant yardmaster, 4 road crews. It's a lot of fun. N-scale, New York on Western, 1954, and it'll be on the layout tour. It'll also be on the ops tour.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. Joel really tries to stick to the prototypical operating schemes, as you know. So it's a very interesting layout. And actually, I believe. Go ahead.
No, and the layout's on the cover and in this month's NMRA magazine.
Took the words right out of my mouth. That's just what I was going to say. Yep. So this is an interesting layout that we'll also be visiting. This is a Union Pacific based layout. It's in a industrial park. It has its own dedicated unit there. And all of these are really must-see layouts. You can see that shelf over there on the right-hand side. That is just full of Union Pacific rolling stock.
Brass Union Pacific rolling stock.
A lot of brass in there. Yeah, I was going to say that, but I didn't want to say it was only brass. But yeah,
he's got tremendous collection.
Yeah, yeah. That working hump yard, and he has a icing platform that also works. It moves. Let's put it that way. So it's a very interesting layout. That's a lot of fun to visit. And then here's a nice mid-size home layout. This is going to actually, here's Here's a inside tip. This will be on the next NRA magazine issue. Beautifully scenic. If you're a fan of the Milwaukee Road or the Sioux Line, this is really one you should check out. This is, like I said, we have a ton of layouts here in Southern California, so we're going to try and get you out to see as many as we can. We're still working on some more. We're going to have a Disney themed garden layout on the tour in Orange County that I didn't have a chance to get a picture up on the presentation, but that's a real charmer too. And if you can't make it to the park, it's one way to get a little taste of Disneyland. So here we go. Let's look at prototype tours for a minute. This is the Southern California Railway Museum in Paris. It has a wide variety of rolling stock and locomotives. It has one of the best streetcar and interurban collections, I think, in the United States. It has some steam out there, mostly diesel though. There's a narrow gauge turntable out there that's similar to the one in Laws, California, if you're familiar with that. And we're going to do run one out there. That is going to allow you to jump in the cab of perhaps that locomotive right there in the picture and do a little full-size running, a little full-size operating. And at the end of the run one event, you get a nice little certificate from the museum that says you actually ran a full-size locomotive. That is going, by the way, that is going to be an all-day tour because it is a fair distance from Long Beach.
It also has a lot of facilities, the interurbans, and the actually you can ride on them around the facility, so it's super cool.
Yeah,
super cool place.
It is very cool. Another place we're going to be visiting is LA Union Station. It's a architectural icon for Los Angeles and one of the last, train palaces that was built in the United States. While we're there, you're going to get a tour of the building, and also the ATSF Bicentennial SD45-2 is going to be parked on the tracks, as well as Santa Fe 3751-484 with their crew on hand. So that's going to be a great visit there. We're going to go to Metro Rail Fleet Services. This is where they take care of our light rail trains. One of the places they take care of our light rail trains in the Los Angeles area, I should say. And we're going to visit that. It's very interesting how they do that. Rail Giants Train Museum. This is also static displays of different locomotives and rolling stock. This is where the big boy actually came out of, the 4014, before it went up to Cheyenne for refurbishment and returned back to the rails. Very, very fine display there. Actually there, we're also going to visit a little G-scale garden railway that's associated there with the Fairplex. Travel Town Transportation Museum. They have a wide variety of rolling stock here and locomotives. You can see their train shed here. You can spend all day just wandering through this place. It's got an amazing set of rolling stock, as I say. Some of it's indoors, some of it's outdoors like this. And they're at the Travel Town Museum. We'll also be visiting the East Valley lines, which is a N-scale, rather large N-scale layout. So, and we're working on more. One thing that isn't listed in there, which is a 99.9% sure, is Gemco Yard. Gemco is the currently it's the Union Pacific Yard in Van Nuys. It used to be the Southern Pacific Yard there, and that served the General Motors assembly plant that was located in Van Nuys. And that tour will be hosted by a Union Pacific conductor and a brakeman, and he is for a young guy, he's been on the railroad for like 40 years, so it's amazing. He probably started when he was like in diapers, but he has a lot of great stories to tell about the days when GM was putting together Camaros out there in the valley. So working on more is in the works as well. So move on to operations a little bit, really quickly. This is going to be coordinated by the OPSIG group. We've got a lot of operating layouts in the area, a lot of different operating schemes. We have a lot of territory to cover, shall we say. So this will probably get broken down, probably have to go someplace almost every night to operate to get everybody in on the schedule. So the National Train Show, and if you're not aware, that is part of the NMRA National Convention. You will be able to walk to the National Train Show. It's a block from the hotel across the street. You will have exclusive access to the National Train Show Friday from, I believe it's 10 to 1. And then after that, you still have free access to the train show for the rest of the weekend. And of course, if you haven't been to the National Train Show, I think in the advertising, they say it's the candy store, and it really is. Another place you can spend all day, fill up your bag. You can walk back to the hotel and empty your bag and then go back to the train show. So it's really easy to get everything you're looking for. The train show also features modular layouts on display, manufacturers, vendors, and so forth. So it's kind of the jewel in the crown at the end of the week for the convention. So, like we said, bring the whole family. Alrighty, so let's look at some of the general interest tours we're going to do. Warner Brothers is a working movie studio. This is an amazing tour. It's not like the Universal Studios tram tour. This is a real working studio, TV and movies being produced there. Well worth your time. The Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, they have rotating displays there about the history of motion pictures, award-winning motion pictures, and that will be on our tours as well. Here's something that you'll be able to see from the hotel. The RMS Queen Mary is right across the bay from our hotel. We are working on a guided tour of the Queen Mary, which should be no problem for us. And it was, and it is really an amazing thing to see as well. San Antonio Winery. This is the oldest winery in Los Angeles. They have a great restaurant in here. You can go shop. There's a gift shop. You can buy wine tasting, and we're going to have a lunch there. Catalina Island. The Catalina Island cruise, it's an hour-long cruise to the island from Long Beach. There are activities on the island that you can arrange on your own. So some of the things that you can do on Catalina is the glass bottom boat. There's a semi-submarine, which is kind of like a boat with a submarine bottom on it that you can tour around on. There's a zip line, there's snorkeling. There's the Catalina Casino, which is not an actual gambling casino. It was at one time, but it's a historic building there. There's the Wrigley Memorial. At one time, the Wrigley family owned, I believe, most, if not all, of the island. That's the Wrigley Gum folks. So it's a very interesting place to go. Most of the activities on the island range from $25 to $75. So that's a very affordable trip.
It's also, so I jump in, it's also
Yep.
got a terrific beach, got a terrific downtown. So it's a great place to spend the day, go to the beach, wander around the old town. They're also famous for snorkeling and scuba diving. If you're interested in those sorts of things, you could take the boat out there and snorkel and scuba dive for the day. One of the top places in Southern California to do that, if that's something that part of your family likes to do.
Yes, and equipment is available for rent on the island, so you don't have to bring your tank.
One other thing about the general interest tours, you know, when you go to national conventions, there's almost always a shop tour that you can go to that you can't get to as a regular human otherwise, or there's a railroad museum, the local railroad museum, or two or three. Well, we've obviously got two or three of them, but the general interest tours, the Academy of Motion Picture Museum, the Warner Brothers Studio, the Queen Mary, and particularly Catalina are places you can't see anyplace else in the country or at any other national convention. These are Southern California icons, and it's one of the things you can do when you come to Southern California this next summer.
Exactly. One of a kind things, as Joel says, you can't see them anywhere else. So a little bit about sightseeing. That's Naples, which is Long Beach adjacent. No, that's not Italy. And you can get a gondola ride there. You can actually get a dinner in one of those gondolas as well. A lot of fun. Good way to spend an evening. This is the Aquarium of the Pacific. It is walking distance from the hotel. But if you don't want to walk, there is a free shuttle that runs in Long Beach, and it does a loop. So you can loop around Long Beach, go to all kinds of different places. Long Beach in itself is a great place for dining and drinking, and it's also kind of one of a kind place, you know.
And music. The aquarium is actually celebrating their 25th anniversary in 2024, which shocked me because I remember when they were building it, I went, "Oh wow, that was 24 years ago." But yeah, 24 years. Great. It's just excellent, up to date aquarium.
And Warner Brothers is also celebrating their 100th anniversary. Toss that in. There's the Aqualink water taxi that'll run you around the bay there by Long Beach. Of course, the Hollywood area. There's lots to do there. Walk of Fame. There's I believe the Wax Museum is still there. There's Grauman's Chinese with all the footprints in front of it. All the kind of Hollywood things that you might want to do.
You could be in the audience. You could be in the audience of a game show.
Yep. You can take a tour of the Stars homes.
I'll sell you a map. I'll sell you a map.
Joel knows them all, of course. So this is a great place to look down on the city, literally, not figuratively. The Griffith Observatory is a wonderful place to visit. It's upon the hill just east of that Hollywood sign by a little bit, and also very fascinating in a scientific sense as well, in an astronomical sense. Great place to take the family. Then there's, of course, Universal Studios there in Hollywood adjacent. That is I'm sure you've seen advertising for it. It's a theme park. They do a tram tour through the park, and that's a lot of fun to do as well for the entire family. Then, of course, we all know this, Disneyland. This is the original park. So before or after, that's a great place to see. Plan on spending some time because there's a lot of territory to cover there. I don't think that's our Magic Castle, though. I don't know where I got that picture. All righty, then there's Knott's Berry Farm that is just down the road. I can tell you right now we're working on trying to get into the Knott's Berry Farm engine shops. They do have narrow gauge ex-Colorado rolling stock and locomotives there. It's a very fascinating tour. And other than that, it's a great theme park. There's lots of fun things to do there. There's great food in the restaurants. And then right across the street from Knott's, there's the replica of Independence Hall. And there's also a water park if you're inclined to go get wet.
There's also a place around the corner called Medieval Times where you can watch jousting and sword fighting melees and things like that. If that's while ripping chicken up with your hands, that's Medieval Times.
Yeah, they take it seriously.
And as I mentioned earlier, these are iconic California beach towns. You can't see this anyplace else. These are special places. Huntington Beach, famous as Surf City, the Seal Beach Pier, the Huntington Beach Pier, the Balboa Pier, Newport Beach, Laguna Beach, Belmont Shores, great shopping district. And those are all within 15 or 20 minutes of the hotel. Belmont Shore, Long Beach, Redondo, Manhattan, Hermosa, Santa Monica, Malibu are further away. But Belmont Shore, Long Beach, Seal Beach, Huntington Beach are all within 15, 20 minutes of the hotel. So they're close by, good for an afternoon or for a day at the beach, or just to walk on the pier and lunch or dinner.
Yep.
So lots to do.
The top photo there is that's Santa Monica Pier there that has the Ferris wheel, and they have some other rides there too. All these places are wonderful places to visit. We will have a booklet available for our registrants that will describe some of these destinations, and I'm sure we'll probably have some advertising material from some of these places as well. So what I suggest you do is go online and plan your vacation. First stop you want to make is, of course, SurfLiner2024.org and reserve your make your registration for our convention, and then go on to reserve the hotel, and then work out from there. The great thing about the Long Beach location is it's very centralized, so it's convenient for the Orange County attractions like Disneyland and Knott's, as well as the up-coast locations in Los Angeles County, Hollywood, and San Fernando Valley, and so forth. So I can tell you that our convention registration is available online right now. Our hotel registration is literally a couple of 3 days away from from being activated on our website. This thing is constantly evolving. If you've ever been involved with it, planning any kind of event like this, you know things can change, but most of the stuff that we've just talked about is going to happen. And the way to find out if what's going on is to go back to the website and check for updates. So here's some of the people that helped out on this presentation. That if you want a copy of the of this presentation, I think we can work it out. I'll talk with Speed about how we can make that happen. But that is our website, and that QR code will take you right to the website if you want to take a screenshot of that right now. I'll leave it up there for a minute.
If you, just one last thing for me, if you haven't been to a national convention before, this is a great one, because it provides everything that every other convention provided, but plus all the other attractions that Southern California provides, plus our terrific weather.
Yeah,
We're right on the coast.
If you go on the website, you'll see there's a weather widget on the homepage. You can check the temperature, the daytime highs, nighttime lows, anytime you'd like. So with that, I'm going to say, are there any questions?
There are a few.
Okay.
You mentioned the hotel and the dates, July 29th to August 18th. But is there any indication of what the rates are for staying there?
Yes, it's $209 a night plus tax, of course, and then we have a $12 parking rate with in and out privileges.
Okay, is there a timeline for when we can book hotel rooms?
Joel, I think I could probably easily say within the next week. We're going to open the. We've got the Christmas holiday right here that we have to work around, and then I'd say middle of next week. Yep.
Yeah, I would say the middle of next week to the first part of January. Next week is still December, so I'd say the first week of January you should be the hotel should be ready to go.
At the latest, I'd say. It may be before that. Best way to find out, just go to the website every couple of days, and the button will be on there when we've got it ready to go.
Cool. Are there any rail fanning information for Long Beach itself? I know some of us like to go watch the trains.
There are some locations in around the port where you'll be able to rail fan. Getting on property is really difficult these days because of the legal aspects, but we will produce a sheet that might show some locations on a map where you can has to be, you know, a safe location. There's some great views of the port and the rail activity there, which happens to be on a bridge where you just can't stop. It's one of those things. But yeah, absolutely.
So we'll make a point to talk with the local rail fanning groups and see where those places are. That's not my thing, so I don't know off the top of my head. So,
Yeah.
but I know they are. I know they spend a lot of time doing it. But my friends and I will spend one Sunday a year at Fullerton Station just watching the container trains go by, which doesn't float my boat, but okay, it's great. It's a great day for coffee and hanging out.
Cool.
Now there are two iconic locations, but they're a little ways away. That's why we're not sponsoring a trip, but one can certainly go on their own. One is the Cajon Pass out of San Bernardino. That's BNSF and UP trains. You're guaranteed to see traffic through there. And then the San Bernardino Yard and Depot is also a great stop. And of course, the other is Tehachapi Loop.
Correct. Okay. So where could people find things to do and see on the way to or from the convention? Some of us are planning to drive it.
We're going to be publishing the self-drive tour, and we're trying to bookend that. So for registrants, we'll make available layouts that they may be able to visit on the way in and on the way out. So that we'll be producing some more of that. I don't know what else. If people want to see other things than that, other than rail related things, probably the best thing to do would be to go online and kind of see what's on along their route. You can come in via Route 66. That's got a lot of iconic locations on it if you're coming from the east.
And then the last question I have here is, are there any plans to visit some of the San Diego layouts on any of your tours or open self-driving tours? Or
there will be self-driving tours available in San Diego. Again, it's a logistics problem because it's a good 2.5 hour drive one way, and that's if you're not on a high traffic time. The train, you can take the train down there, but then that's also kind of iffy because it's had washouts a couple of times, so we're not sure if the train would be available. But I can tell you that we are currently looking at the San Diego Model Railroad Museum, another great visit on the Sunday after the convention, the Sunday the 11th. We're looking at being able to get into there and actually have either a discount or a free admission for the registrants at the convention, and possibility of operating down there as well. And then, of course, there are other layouts in the San Diego County area by San Diego itself that will likely be featuring on self-drives. And that would be for the people, like you say, they're either, coming before the convention or after.
nice. I think you're going to have to extend my stay.
Good
We've
idea.
got the rate for you. Like I say, there's so much to do here. There's so much fun to be had. I think it's going to be a really wonderful convention. One for the record books. So,
Yep.
I hope everybody registers soon. We probably will be looking at a price increase in the spring here sometime, so it's best to do it now before that changes. So,
Book early.
book early, book early, book often.
Yes. So I don't see any other questions here. Any other closing remarks you guys want to
Joel, you got anything
encourage
to
us
add?
with?
Well, I said it already. It's going to be a great convention. I'm looking forward to meeting a lot of the people I've talked to over the years and and providing some hospitality to the folks that I've met at conventions around the country. So, and to have them operate on my layout and to show them the layout. So that's very exciting for me personally. I know that I have friends from all over the world that are coming, and I'm excited to see them. It's going to be a great week. And as I said, this is a terrific opportunity. And if you've never been to a national convention, this is the one to come to. If you've been to many of them, this is the one to come to. And we're working really hard to make sure it's the best ever. That's what we're focused on. So we look forward to seeing you and meeting you in person.
I just wish I could do it all, and I know I won't be able to. So
Yeah, we're gonna miss the convention.
yeah.
That's one of the tough parts when you're involved in a convention. Then you don't see much of the convention.
Right. I would also like to wish everyone a very Merry Christmas, Happy New Year. However you celebrate the holidays, please have a safe and enjoyable holiday season.
So, same thing from the NMRAx team. Happy holidays, Happy New Year. If we don't see you in Amherst, then we will see you elsewhere, and then we will see you in Long Beach right after that. So thank you, everybody, for hanging out with us tonight. Hope to see you soon.
Thanks.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, everybody.